Chapter 1395. Zwa Xiaoyan blushed and pouted. She cursed in a low voice, pinched her flesh with her fingers, turned 90 degrees and 180 degrees, stomped her feet, twisted her waist, and pouted her lips. Seeing such a childish scene, everyone laughed even louder. Unknowingly, 3 rounds of wine had passed. The monster emperor asked Xiao, "Xiao, what do you plan to do in the future?" Xiao pondered for a moment and chose her words carefully. Then, she said solemnly, "This child has already told Imperial Mother that Imperial Father and Imperial Mother have many older and younger brothers. This child has already left for so many years. So, this child wants to continue following Imperial Father and Imperial Mother, to create a career there." The monster emperor lowered his eyes and said, "So you mean, you won't come back? Please forgive me for being unfilial. All right, now that you've regained your memory, you must know what happened in the past. Did any of your brothers participate in it? Is that why you didn't tell me and didn't want to come back?" The monster emperor asked. Xiao bit her lips and said, "Let bygones be bygones. Everything is in the past. Imperial Father, please don't look into the past." The monster emperor said indifferently, "Is it the youngest?" Xiao trembled. "No. Well, it's him then." The monster emperor sighed. "Among the 10 golden crow princes, he's the one who's most inclined to the west. Since you've made your decision, then do as you wish. I'm satisfied to see my son come back today. I have no more regrets." She has smiled with tears in her eyes. "But I still hope that you can stay here for a while. Father and Mother will teach you what you should have learned in the past but didn't. After that, you can go back and do what you want." Xiao looked at Zhuo with an inquiring look. Zhuo rolled his eyes and said, "Why are you looking at me like that? Since your Imperial Mother has said so, of course you have to listen to your Imperial Mother. Besides, I can save a lot of money even if you don't go back. You big eater, don't you know how much you've eaten of my resources all these years? When you go back, remember to ask your Imperial Father and Imperial Mother for a lot of money to make up for my losses all these years." Xiao didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He laughed, waved his hand, and said generously, "Of course, Brother Duo, don't worry. I'll make sure he fills you up with interspatial equipment when the time comes." Demon Empress Shiha's words were filled with confidence. Considering the wealth of the demon race, no matter how large Xiao's space equipment was, she was confident that she could fill it up in one go. It's not a big deal. Filling his spatial equipment? Zhao's expression immediately changed. "Mother, be careful with your words." Xiao's eyes lit up like light bulbs. He said, "I didn't expect sister-in-law to be so straightforward and generous. I'll be waiting then." Xiao, on the other hand, had a bitter smile on her face, as if she didn't know what to say. Dongwang was curious. He asked, "What's wrong? Is your father's space equipment very big? How big is it? Is it not enough even with the resources of our demon race?" Xiao looked at Xiaoduo. Xiaoduo waved his hand casually and said, Say it. We're not strangers, so there's nothing to be embarrassed about." Xiao sighed and said, "Why else would I say that I'll follow my father to start business? My father has a special space equipment. Because of a series of coincidences, it's now a prototype of a small world. No, it's a prototype of a world. It has the earth, fire, water, and wind as its foundation, and the sun and moon as its vitality. It's really no different from a world. Don't talk about filling it up with treasures. Even if we send in all our people, we might not be able to fill it up. A world of its own? Earth, fire, water, and wind? A world of its own?" Dongwang and the Demon King's expressions changed. They turned to look at Xiaoduo in shock, especially the Demon King, who muttered, "I understand now. Once your father's world is formed, you'll be the only son in this world?" Xiao nodded. "Yes." Dongwang and the Demon King's expressions turned serious. They both gasped at the same time. Although this world is far from being formed, it already has the Dragon of Providence and the Heavenly Providence. It already has everything it needs. It's just waiting for it to be perfected in the future. Xiao frowned and said. The Demon King and Dongwang grabbed Xiao's hand at the same time. "What else do you need? I'll give you everything." At this moment, the aura of the two emperors erupted like a volcano. Zhuo Xiaoduo didn't understand. Even Zhuo Chonglu and his wife didn't know what this meant. However, the Demon Emperor and Dongwang were extremely clear about this. What did the existence of such a world mean? What did it mean? This didn't just mean an infinitely large strategic base. It also meant that a god of creation was about to be born. That god of creation was even more awesome than Pangu Hongjun. He was an unbounded expert in the truest sense. Lack of spatial treasures, lack of astral soul's jade powder, lack of creation triangle, lack of treasures, lack of earth veins, lack of dragon veins, lack of everything. It's just a prototype. Of course, it lacks everything. Zhuo Xiaoduo didn't hold back at all. With such a rare opportunity in front of him, Zhuo Xiaoduo wouldn't hold back. Dongwang and the Demon King were already discouraged when Zhuo Xiaoduo was only halfway through. It really is lacking in everything. You haven't even taken shape yet. Xiao hurriedly said, No, it's really taken shape. My father is used to acting pitiful. You'll know when you go in. Therefore, under Zhuo Xiaoduo's invitation, the three leaders of the demon clan all entered the Tower of Void Destruction. As soon as they entered, the three leaders were collectively stunned. Damn, is this the bleak space that lacks everything that you said? Is this what you meant by lacking so much? Isn't this the prototype already formed? Just like what Yiqiong said, they just need to continue to fill it up. They don't lack so much at all. It's really a habit of acting pitiful. After coming out of the Tower of Void Destruction, the Demon King and Donghuang's attitude was 10 times more enthusiastic than before. They held Zhuo Chonglu's hand tightly and said, Brother Zhuo, you must stay for a few more days. We have a lot of things that we need to discuss together. Specific events, specific analysis, in-depth discussion. Xiao Duo, you can play here as much as you want. Whatever you need, no matter what it is, no matter how much you want, just tell me. I'll get you as much as I can. Don't worry, I'll do what I say. For the next period of time, Zhuo Xiaoduo and his family stayed in the Demon Emperor Palace. Xiao didn't want anyone to know that he was back, especially his brothers. The Demon King and Demon Empress didn't have any objections. Instead, they gave their full support. Especially, the Demon King and his family felt that Xiao was following Zhuo Xiaoduo to be the only sun god in a brand new world. Strictly speaking, it was really much better than his brothers. It was a real bright path with a bright future. This is the real eternal path, the path of immortality. This is the best path that the three-legged golden crows can get. It's a straight path. Yiqiong survived a near-death experience and turned misfortune into bliss. She actually got such a great opportunity, especially without any competition. But remember to control your temper. You can't be willful. Even if you really become the sun god of the new world, you have to maintain a close relationship with the heavenly way. I think we can start building Sun God's palace that belongs to Yiqiong now. Later, I will go and discuss with the Fusang Divine Tree to see if we can split out a branch of the Fusang Divine Tree to accompany you to the new world. After all, Sun God's palace and the Fusang Divine Tree will be the cornerstone for you to develop your future ambitions, and also the place where you can settle down. If there's an opportunity, you can enlighten the spiritual birds in the new world, such as the vermilion bird, the fire phoenix, and the flame swan. That world already has your aura. If it's rare for a golden crow to be born, you can only choose spiritual birds that also belong to the fire origin. You have to be careful to restrain your children. When you're exploring the new world, you have to climb to a high position at the beginning. Remember to build a good relationship with the Sky Dragon. More importantly, you have to listen to your father, Xiao Duo. If you're driven back by your father, you'll have no face at all. When the Demon Emperor and the Demon Empress talked in private, they often sighed with emotion. No wonder Her Majesty Emperor Envihua bestowed the sword of Emperor Envihua to Yiqiong. Look, if the new world is truly formed and Yiqiong's soul is still closely connected to the sword of Emperor Envihua, the sword of Emperor Envihua will definitely accompany her to the new world. Then, the divine punishment and tribulation thunders of the new world will be the power of the sword of Emperor Envihua. Although the Huahuang sword was ranked last among the top 10 immemorial mystical weapons in the past at that time, it might be a divine weapon of the Great Tao. Her Majesty Empress Hua's foresight is really admirable. The two of them were full of praises. They didn't know that if Her Majesty Empress Hua knew about this, she would most likely be confused. At that time, she just wanted to protect Yiqiong from the tribulation and try to preserve the foundation of the demon clan so that they wouldn't be schemed to fall apart. How? How did it suddenly extend to the New World? During this time, the Zhou family, who lived in the Demon Emperor Palace, were like fish in water. They lived a very comfortable life. Dongwang acted personally. Not only did he collect interspatial equipment and Astral Soul's jade powder for Zhou Xiaoduo, but he also tried his best to find some natural treasures and send them to Zhou Xiaoduo's space-destroying tower, as if they were free. The space-destroying tower's functions became more and more powerful, and the small world inside also expanded. When it reached a certain bottleneck, Dongwang even personally brought Zhou Xiaoduo to the Xuanwu Sage, the Vermilion Bird Sage, and the White Tiger Sage to ask for the fragments of the creation plate. With His Majesty Donghuang's visit and the Green Dragon's help, the three sages didn't make things difficult for Zhou Xiaoduo. They happily handed over the fragments of the creation plate to Zhou Xiaoduo. The three sages only made one request, and it was basically the same as if they had discussed it beforehand. If the catastrophe of the ancestral land reaches the end, I hope that some of the descendants can enter the new world and preserve their inherited bloodline and not be annihilated. This request was nothing to Zhou Xiaoduo, and he agreed without hesitation. After the three corners of the creation plate were gathered, the internal space of the space-destroying tower expanded by more than 100 times. More importantly, it was more stable than before, a kind of stability that was much more stable. If the previous space-destroying tower could withstand the full power of many sage-to-be experts without collapsing, now, even if the sages were to fight each other, the space-destroying tower could still hold on for a long time. Zhou Xiaoduo's cultivation also improved a lot, and Zhou Xiaoyan, who had been with him all this time, also benefited a lot. With the resources of the demon clan, the effect of the two's improvement was naturally terrifying. As for the Demon King Dongwang, the Demon Empress, and the others who had facilitated all this, they were very frank, or rather, candid. We have a purpose, and we are not doing this for free. A brand new world with a brand new heavenly way is not only the strategic depth of the human race, but also the strategic depth of all the races in the continent. If one day the demon clan is finally defeated and cannot escape the calamity of decline, if the three of us are lucky enough not to die, we will not be entangled, nor will we force ourselves to hold on, nor will we self-destruct. We will only cross the starry sky and search for the eternal great Tao, and will never enter the new world. We hope that the new world and the space-destroying tower can open up a place for the demon clan, so that the bloodline of the demon clan will not be cut off. The day the demon clan is confirmed to be defeated, we will create the illusion that the entire demon clan is dead, and let some of the descendants of the demon clan enter the world of the space-destroying tower. This is the preparation we, as the masters of the demon clan, and also the last step we can do for the demon clan. So we are willing to offer these things, and we are afraid that you will not accept it. Indeed, in the future, there may be a life and death battle between you and me, but the inheritance of our bloodlines and the reproduction of our descendants are already safe. Zhou Chonglu completely understood and accepted such a statement. In this world, everyone's pursuit was different. The poor wanted to have enough to eat. The well-fed people wanted to be well-off. The well-off people wanted to be rich. The rich naturally wanted more. They wanted to enjoy themselves, and it was inevitable that they would think about that after being full and warm. Or they wanted power, and then they would reach the peak. However, there were still pursuits for reaching the peak of power, such as longevity, immortality, and so on. The martial artists wanted to become stronger, and the strong wanted to become even stronger. The peak above, that was the pursuit of immortality and the great Tao. At the end of the day, it was just endless desire and endless pursuit. It was often said that a certain person's knowledge was shallow, or that he did not understand such a shallow principle. However, the so-called shallow knowledge was just that he had not reached that level yet. For example, the poor would never be able to imagine what the emperor was playing with, eating, and using. Apart from the fact that it was difficult for the emperor to imagine how tofu dregs were hard to swallow, he also could not imagine what the immortals who had transcended the mortal world were eating, playing, and using. The so-called immortals also found it hard to imagine why those strong people were so dismissive of the things they pursued. Why were the sages so powerful and boundless, but they turned a blind eye to the suffering of all living beings in the world and remained indifferent? Because every level had its own thoughts and pursuits. Only when one reached a certain position, a certain status, could one understand a little bit what people at that level were thinking and what they were pursuing. Were the demon emperors and other top experts really thinking for their people? Were they really doing it for the common people? Perhaps they were, but it was definitely not their whole life. However, they needed their race to exist. As long as their race existed, the luck of their race would exist, and they would have roots. No matter where they fought in the starry sky, as long as the demon race's roots existed, they would have confidence, and there would be room to turn things around. If there was only one invincible expert left in a race, then what was the meaning of this expert's existence? Other than proving his own strength, there was nothing else, because there was no one else who needed him to fight for himself. Eternal loneliness would collapse sooner or later, and he would be annihilated in the Star River. Because he no longer had his own kind, there was no more meaning to his existence. It was the same for all races. It was also because of this that the demon emperors and other sovereigns were willing to pay such a high price and let Xiaoduo do whatever he wanted. As long as they could guarantee this, it was enough. Because the demon emperors had no confidence that they could survive this clear heavenly tribulation. In the end, his opponents would definitely be the 8 great Zhu Wu, Zhuo Changlu, and his wife, the heavenly master sage, 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 the receiving sage, the demon ancestor Luo Ho, and so on. Not to mention, there was also a rising star like Zhuo Duo. His fate and Tao were so dense that it made him tremble. Who could guarantee that they could survive and win in such a battle? Even the demon ancestor Luo Ho did not have such confidence. The clear heavenly tribulation this time involved so many races and heavens. Even if one was as strong as the heavenly master sage, the heavenly master sage, and the heavenly master sage, he would still have to face the joint attack of the 2 sages of the West, the demon emperor Dongwang, the demon empress, and the 8 great Zhu Wu. If he was not careful, he could still die. The prerequisite for achieving this goal was that one of the experts mentioned above had to be willing to risk his life and self-destruct. At the cost of his own life, he would be able to severely injure the saint. Then, killing the saint would no longer be out of reach. The consequences would be set in stone. Which one of these people was not a lunatic who would sacrifice himself for their own goals? Not to mention other things, the heavenly master sage Yuani was even willing to give up the position of heavenly master sage. If victory was decided in one battle, would he dare to sacrifice himself? Would he sacrifice himself? Or perhaps, among the demon emperors Dongwang and the demon empress, any one of them would resolutely take action in order to give the other 2 a chance to survive. As for the 8 Zhu Wu, they were a group of unreasonable lunatics. It was even possible for all 8 of them to sacrifice themselves together and drag a group of experts of the same level down with them. How could they survive such a tragic battle? Even if Tao ancestor Hongjun was present, he might not have much confidence. Therefore, Zhuo Xiaoduo's backup plan, the space exterminating pagoda, was extremely important at this moment. It was indescribably precious. At the same time, Zhuo Xiaoduo's family was broadening their horizons almost every day. Whether it was Zhuo Changlu and his wife, or Zhuo Xiaoduo and his wife. Demon Emperors Dongwang and the Demon Empress were both experienced and knowledgeable. They casually spoke of ancient grievances, and their words were profound. They sorted out the relationships between them, and strange stories emerged one after another. Swishaoduo only realized at the end that the relationship between those peak powerhouses was really complicated to the extreme. It was even more complicated than the relationship between his family. Between any one of them, there were countless grievances and grudges intertwined, and endless karma twisted and turned. They could cooperate at any time, but they could also turn against each other at any time. One second, they could fight side by side, and the next second, they could turn against each other. You're my benefactor? Am I not of any help to you? But you also have a grudge against me. For example, you robbed me of this and that a few centuries ago. Like you killed my wife millions of years ago. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, you killed my disciple. Innumerable bullshit matters like this were interspersed among the ancient experts. After all, there were only so many of them in the long river of history. You robbed me of my inheritance. You took over my clan. You bewitched my successor if there were too many conflicts and entanglements. For example, the ancient celestial clan, the dragon clan, the phoenix clan, and the Qilin clan. Later on, there was the dragon clan among the demon clan, the dragon clan among the demon clan, and the dragon clan among the spirit clan. There were also the phoenix clan and the Qilin clan. No one dared to say that they were orthodox. If they insisted, they would only be ridiculed. After listening to the Demon Emperor and Demon Empress Donghuang's narration of many ancient events, Swishaoduo became more and more confused about the karma and grievances between the various clans. Actually, it was no wonder. After all, even the Demon Emperor, Ancestor Dragon, and Primordial Phoenix could not really understand and see through it. In any case, there was nothing wrong with fighting and killing when they met. It was also natural for them to drink tea and chat when they met. As for who was right and who was wrong, according to the Demon Emperor, it was fuck. Who cared about such a small matter as right and wrong now? Karma and grievances were not isolated. Due to fate, they came into being. After listening to the Demon Emperor and the other two big shots of the Demon Clan, Swishaoduo was inexplicably shocked. The relationships between the ancient experts were really too messy. They were clearly friends, but they were also opponents. They were clearly confidants, but they could fight to the death. They were clearly irreconcilable, but they could still cooperate. You've dealt a huge blow to my innocent and young heart. I can say that the mighty figures of the primordial times are too good at playing. I was born upright and plain-spoken. I abhor evil. I don't rub sand in my eyes. Enmity is enmity. Kindness is kindness. Black is black. White is white. I am so open and aboveboard. It would be abnormal if his head did not hurt after listening to such a complicated relationship. However, these stories were quite interesting. Even though he despised them in his heart, it did not stop Swishaoduo from listening with relish. At the same time, he also absorbed the essence of the wonderful story. Those in power could not be black-hearted, but they had to understand what black-hearted was. Otherwise, how could they fight against black-hearted? Yes, that was Swishaoduo's way of doing things. It had always been like that. Well, big brother, what about the past of Chan School and Jie School? Can you tell me about it? Swishaoduo asked. Now, Swishaoduo was very familiar with calling the Demon Emperor as Big Brother. He could do it as soon as he opened his mouth. There was no longer any awkwardness. The so-called awkwardness and entanglement had long disappeared. Your son is my son. Of course, we are brothers. The only difference is that you are the father and I am the father. There is nothing wrong with this slight difference. It is like the imperial messenger patrolling heaven is my biological father. The Flood Witch. Yes, now I should say that the Flood Zhu Wu is my godfather. That is the reason. Furthermore, I am a loving father and you are my father. There is nothing wrong with that. You are not cuckolded and neither am I. That is the main point. The rest are not worth mentioning. However, the enmity between Chan School and Jie School was the biggest puzzle in Swishaoduo's mind. The investiture of God's tribulation between Chan School and Jie School is another tribulation after the tribulation of witchcraft and demon. However, between the two schools, it is just a battle of ideas. When the Demon King talked about another tribulation, he could not help but sigh heavily. Then he spoke slowly. Of course, what he said was from his own point of view. Naturally, it was mixed with a lot of his own understanding. So Xiaoduo knew the principles behind it. The Demon King also knew it himself. However, this kind of peerless almighties often had their own unique way of looking at problems. With the Demon King's narration, Zhou Xiaoduo finally understood a lot. The legendary investiture of God's tribulation involved the four dimensions of heaven and earth. The four sects of the West and the heavenly court all participated in the investiture of God's tribulation. It was known as the biggest tribulation since the creation of heaven and earth. The starting point of this tribulation was launched by the Tao ancestor. The original intention was to eliminate the burden of heaven and earth accumulated after the tribulation of witchcraft and demon with relatively small losses and weaken the Jie school. Unexpectedly, the tribulation was launched and could not be stopped. It became more and more intense. In the end, it evolved into the four sects fighting to the death. In the end, the Jie school, which was known as the number one sect, was almost completely destroyed. The two battles of the Immortal Slaying Sword Formation and the 10,000 Immortals Formation caused serious damage to the untainted land. After the final battle, the Chan school did not win, the Rin school did not win, and the Jie school did not win either. The Western sect seemed to have benefited and even formed the karma of the journey to the West. However, did they really win? They did not. Then who won? Did the Heavenly Court win? The Heavenly Court did not win either. At most, it could only be considered a small advantage. At the end of the day, the investiture of God's tribulation that was planned by the Tao ancestor was to eliminate the killing intent of heaven and earth. The secondary purpose was to support the Heavenly Court to become the master of the three realms. However, under the intentional or unintentional push of several sages, the atmosphere completely changed. After a series of battles, although many insignificant characters had died, the people were also in a real sense. However, not many of the true experts of the various sects had died. Even the Jie school, which was said to have suffered heavy losses and was almost destroyed, had several eldest disciples who had become the backbone of the Western sect due to fate. Although the Grand Master of Heaven had been sealed, the disciples of the Jie school had used their own efforts to obtain immeasurable merit through the saint's scheme and the opportunity of the Western sect's prosperity to preach to the world. They had used 1,000,000 years to wash away the karma on the Grand Master of Heaven, the so-called God's investiture catastrophe. In the final analysis, you feel wronged, and I 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 feel in the end, it formed a dead knot. I don't know how many years have passed. Until now, there's still only one. The demon emperor pursed his lips and said, "Grudges." Later on, several disciples of the Chan school and Jie school were in the Western sect. On one hand, they worked together to obtain merit and wash away karma. On the other hand, they did not like each other and fought openly and secretly. They did everything they could. Until now, the Jie school has been re-established. A large number of disciples of the Jie school have returned. The conflicts and grudges have been directly exposed. Coincidentally, the heavenly tribulation has arrived. Everyone can let go and take revenge. In the end, it's still a mess. That's all. That's all. Then I understand a little. That's what Xiaoduo said. Then what I want to ask is, can the disciples of the Jie school be considered demons? This time, the demon emperor did not hesitate and said, No. The so-called demon race has to have a racial inheritance. As for the disciples of the Jia school, they are said to be people who wear fur and wear horns, but in fact, most of them are enlightened by the Grand Master of Heaven, and they cultivate the cultivation methods of the Jia school. In essence, they are fundamentally different from the existence of the demon race. Most of the demon cultivators have inner core and essence core. However, the disciples of the Jia school are the same as human cultivators. They use chi refinement as their foundation and essence as their foundation to refine their essence souls. That is already a decisive difference. Of course, it's difficult for the upper echelons of the various factions to know the key. Many junior disciples of the Jia school find it difficult to distinguish the boundaries. However, the upper echelons of the Jia school and the upper echelons of the demon race understand that the two can no longer be mixed. The demon emperor sighed and said, "If we can really converge, why would the demons be willing to retreat and give up the heavenly courts and the position of the ruler of the continent?" So Xiaoduo did not understand and felt confused. The demon emperor seemed to mean a little contradictory. For example, there were two turtles. One was a demon, and the other said, "I'm not a demon. I'm an immortal of the Jia school." This motherfucker. Think about it. How unreasonable is this? How can it be understood? However, reality was like this. The Grand Master of Heaven is really awesome. So Xiaoduo could not help but admire him. Of course, the Grand Master of Heaven is awesome. The Demon Emperor was already used to Xiaoduo's way of speaking and was unconsciously affected. When the two of them were together, they chatted about the past and the present. After they finished talking, they naturally had to summarize the main topic. How's your world? Thanks to the gathering of the other triangles of the creation disk, it should already be as big as the demon continent and the Wu people's continent combined. So what Xiaoduo said, it's actually that big. It's enough. It's not enough. Or rather, it's not the limit. So Xiaoduo said, it's probably because my cultivation level is still shallow and limited the development of space. Also, although the creation disk has been gathered by the triangles, it's still not complete. It can't reach its greatest effect. That's also one of the reasons. At the mention of that, the Demon Emperor smiled bitterly and was speechless for a while. He really didn't dare to make any promises on this matter. The creation disk is not complete. Of course it's not complete. It's definitely not complete. Zhou Xiaoduo had already obtained most of the fragments of the creation disk. However, the last part of the creation disk was the creation Jade disk that had landed in the hands of the Tao Ancestor. Back then, the Tao Ancestor had used the creation Jade disk to fuse with the heavenly Tao and evolve the 3,000 great Tao. That was how the current world was formed. Zhou Xiaoduo, you actually want to snatch that too? I don't know if I should say that he's too ambitious or that he doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Snatching something from the Tao Ancestor was a big move that Demon Emperor Jun had never thought of. I can't help you with that. I understand. I can understand that you can't help me get the creation Jade disk. I completely understand. However, I hope that you can help me get something else. It's just a piece of cake for Big Brother. So Xiaoduo smiled slyly. However, his words were extremely casual, as if he was talking about a small Xiao. What is it? Your 10th prince has a gourd. So Xiaoduo revealed his true intentions. He bared his fangs and opened his bloody mouth. Chapter 1396. Xiaoduo's memory of the 10th prince's gourd was still fresh in his mind, and he still had lingering fears about it. That gourd was also Bai and Jiu's brother, and there was a tiny person inside. The tiny person's eyes lit up, and he almost twisted his own head off. This is such a good item. Since I have the chance, how can I not take it and let it wander outside? Yes, I'm not doing this for my own selfish desires. I'm doing this for the old gourd vine's earnest request. Now that the Grand Supreme Elder's purple gold gourd and Sect Master Tongtian's purple green gourd had returned one after another, the yellow skin gourd that had fallen into the hands of the demons was no exception. Yowen's gourd, immortal slaying, flying blade. The Demon Emperor pondered for a moment and said, "You have to take it yourself?" It doesn't make sense for me to force you to take the secret treasure that I've already given you. I can only guarantee that if you take it with your own strength, it's your ability, and I won't pursue the matter. However, if you can't take it, it means that you're not fated with the treasure, and it's not something that can be forcefully resisted by humans. That's good. Big Brother is generous. As a brother, I'm grateful. Xiaoduo was full of confidence, as if the yellow gourd was already in his hands. The next day, 10th Prince, I heard that you're invincible in one-on-one combat. Do you dare to fight with me? Under the gaze of hundreds of demon gods, several demon crown princes, the demon emperor, the demon empress, and Zhuochanglu, under the gaze of tens of thousands of demon soldiers. On the military field outside the demon emperor palace, Xiaoduo stood on a high platform, and his voice was as loud as a bell. Haha, I guess you don't dare. You're a coward who's been known for scheming against others since ancient times. The 10th Prince, Yuan, was instantly enraged upon hearing that. Xiaoduo, who do you think I don't dare? Do you dare to say another word? I said you don't dare. I said you don't dare, you coward. Don't say one word. I'll say 100 or 1,000 times, you coward. I don't dare? The 10th Prince was so angry that he laughed. You think too highly of yourself. Ah, you dare? You really dare? If you want to fight, then let's fight. Hee hee, but as an elder, how can I have the nerve to fight with a junior like you? It's an unfair victory, Xiaoduo said proudly. You, the 10th Crown Prince, was so angry that his stomach almost burst. You fucking challenged me in front of so many people, insulted me, and made it clear that you wanted to fight me. In the end, I accepted the challenge, but you actually avoided it. Are you kidding me? You even keep saying that you're an elder and a junior, and that it's an unfair victory. How do you have the face to say that? Can you be more humane? I don't know why my father is so blind. Even if this brat is lucky enough to become the Taishang sage's representative in this calamity, he doesn't have to call this brat brother. He's really old and muddle-headed. The 10th Prince was infuriated. He leaped into the air and shouted, Xiaoduo, come and fight me. Come and fight me to the death. Let me see how you won without honor, and see who is the laughingstock here. Young people are so impulsive. Xiaoduo sighed with his hands behind his back. You want to fight to the death so easily. You've lived for so many years, but your temperament is still so unstable. Can I, as an elder, give you some advice? Everyone who heard him was at a loss. You've already insulted him to the point of his soul exploding, and you still have the nerve to say that his temperament is unstable. How old are you? How can you talk about teaching him a lesson every time you open your mouth? Xiaoduo, come up. I'm not going up, Xiaoduo said reservedly. I've never fought a meaningless battle. Why would I fight to the death over a dispute of personal feelings? Don't tell me that cultivators of my generation who have learned a lot of skills do not advance for the great Tao, but only to fight bravely? How childish. How shallow is that? He was the one who provoked the 10th Crown Prince first. Now that he was challenged, not only did he not fight, he even taught the person who accepted the challenge a lesson. The demons present all grimaced. There was actually such a person in this world. What do you want for you to fight? The 10th Crown Prince was going crazy. How about this? Look at you. If I don't fight with you, I really can't let you know how difficult the world is. There's always someone better than you. Xiaoduo sighed and said, how about this? He flipped his hand, and a gourd appeared in his hand. It was the purple gold gourd. This is the purple gold gourd that the Grand Supreme Saint gave me. There are 2 bottles of 9 transformations golden pills in it. So Xiaoduo said magnanimously, as an elder, I have to let you take advantage of me. Although it's a gourd wager, if I lose, not only will this purple gold gourd, but the 2 bottles of golden pills in it will also be yours. However, if you lose, your yellow gourd will be mine. How about that? The 10th Crown Prince was furious. All right, it's a deal. Although he was angry, he was not stupid. Xiaoduo's purple gold gourd was clearly of a higher grade than his. After all, it was a secret treasure refined by the most powerful saint. Moreover, there were 2 cauldrons of 9 transformations golden pills in it. Purely based on the stakes of the bet, he was indeed the one who had gained a huge advantage, a huge advantage. However, after the previous battle, he knew that he might not be Zhuo's match if he did not use a Dharma treasure. He said loudly, "I agree to this wager. However, the immortal slaying flying dagger is my natal Dharma treasure. I will not abandon it." "You plan to use the wager to fight? That doesn't make sense." Xiao frowned. "How is that not reasonable?" The 10th Crown Prince said righteously, "My immortal slaying flying dagger is my natal Dharma treasure. I have refined it with my natal true yuan since I was young. It has never been established. Are you going to sever my immortal slaying flying dagger and me because of a wager? That's ridiculous." Xiao frowned, seemingly unable to make up his mind. The 10th Crown Prince snorted. There was joy in his eyes. After the battle 2 days ago, he had already sent people to investigate Xiao. This Xiao had the nickname of Iron Fist Young Master in the human clan of the Astral Souls. However, the weapon that he really used to kill the enemy was a hammer. Then there were swords and hidden weapons that, although this guy seemed to have a lot of scattered items, he rarely had any Dharma treasures. Even if he did have one, such as the purple gold gourd from the Grand Supreme Sage, it must have been obtained recently. How could it be comparable to his immortal slaying flying dagger? He could not help but shout, "Xiao, you don't dare." Xiao could not help but be stunned. He pointed at his own nose and said, "What did you say? I don't dare. Just say that you dare to fight or not." The 10th Crown Prince laughed. Okay. Since you use your immortal slaying flying dagger, then let's fight with Dharma treasures." Xiao grabbed the purple gold gourd and said, "You use your immortal slaying flying dagger gourd. I also want to use my gourd." The 10th Crown Prince sneered and said, "Okay." So Xiao leaped up and arrived above the 10th Crown Prince in the blink of an eye. He opened the mouth of his gourd and shouted, "10th Crown Prince, I won't bully you. I'll call you. Do you dare to answer? Call me? How many times have you called me? I haven't lost a single piece of flesh." The 10th Crown Prince sneered in his heart. "Why wouldn't I dare? 10th Crown Prince, I'm here." Whoosh! That the 10th Crown Prince, Yuan, disappeared into the purple gold gourd. Everyone was dumbfounded when they saw this. What the fuck was this? How did the 10th Crown Prince get sucked into the gourd after calling his name? There was no lack of knowledgeable people present. They had naturally seen many Dharma treasures that sucked and trapped people. However, these Dharma treasures usually required great power to activate the Dharma treasure. Then, the Dharma treasure would generate a hurricane of air to wrap around the target and forcefully pull in the opposite direction. Only then would the Dharma treasure be completely absorbed. Why was Xiao so straightforward? What about the absorption process? They didn't seem to see it. Isn't this too strange? Xiao chuckled and placed the purple gold gourd on the high platform. He said, "No need to be shocked. I've already sucked the 10th Crown Prince into this gourd. As his elder, I'll give him an extra advantage. As long as the 10th Crown Prince comes out on his own within 4 hours, he'll still be considered the winner." Everyone thought about it. This was really a good deal. Although the 10th Crown Prince was sucked into the gourd, his Dharma powers were not restricted. Moreover, he had the immortal slaying flying dagger in his hand. He might be able to fight back. Therefore, everyone focused on the gourd on the high platform and observed the subsequent changes with rapt attention. They wanted to see if the 10th Crown Prince could come out, that as far as the eye could see, the gourd was shaking slightly. It was as if the 10th Crown Prince was fighting inside and struggling with all his might. In a moment, the gourd emitted a purple gold light that was extremely beautiful. Everyone's eyes were glued to the screen without blinking. In the gourd, the 10th Crown Prince held a long spear and charged left and right, probing in all directions. However, he seemed to be in the void and chaos. No matter how hard he tried, he could not fly out. Moreover, no matter where he rushed, there was a ball of fire that burned fiercely. The Crown Prince was born with a golden crow sacred body. He was not afraid of fire and could even use all kinds of fire for his own use. However, the purple gold gourd contained the grand pure one's true samadhi fire. How could it be so easy to endure? Duo had no intention of harming his life. He had instructed the purple gold gourd to deal with it appropriately and not use the power of the true Samadhi fire. Otherwise, the 10th Crown Prince would have turned into ashes. The 10th Crown Prince refused to give up and continued to fight everywhere, hoping to be lucky. Suddenly, two rays of light, one white and one black, appeared quietly. They were Bai and Geo. With a cry, the two of them each held a pair of sledgehammers and fought with the 10th Crown Prince in the gourd. After a while, another child in purple came out. He imitated Bai and Geo and also held a pair of sledgehammers and joined the battle. The more the 10th Crown Prince fought, the more strenuous it became. In his fury, he took out the immortal slaying flying blade. He did not expect that the natal Dharma treasure that he claimed to have cultivated with his life would not open no matter how he summoned it. If the gourd did not open, the immortal slaying flying blade inside naturally could not come out. The 10th Crown Prince felt his heart swell. My natal Dharma treasure is actually disobedient now. In this case, how is the gourd different from trash? What use do I have for you? Chapter 1397. Well, it was not completely useless. It even had a new function, chatting. A child in yellow clothes came out and sat on the gourd to watch him fight. Then, he chatted with the other 3 gourd children intimately. Ah, you're all here. I thought I saw wrongly last time. What would you do if we didn't come? I don't know what to do. Anyway, I'm just a gourd. Yeah, is this little 8 and little 9? There's a new one. TSK. They're not bad looking. I actually have a younger sister. It's Bai and Geo. They're drinking wine. Not bad. Look at their potential. Both of them are stronger than us. Nonsense. We've all been refined and turned into magic treasures. Our potential is limitless. The 2 of them are raised as sons and daughters by someone with great providence. How can they be the same? I'm so envious. I want to be raised as a son too. Why don't I have such luck? Who wouldn't be envious? What about you? Where did you end up? Speaking of my fate, I'm still considered passable. I follow the Grand Pure Sage. At first, I could still participate in battles and come out to play occasionally. Later on, I was completely used as a storage unit. This old man has many magic treasures. Usually, he only uses me as a storage unit. In these hundreds of yuan Wei, I've only appeared once and stayed in the human world for more than 10 years. I can't bear to look back on the past. I was only thrown out recently. I'm living happily with little 8 and little 9. You've reunited? So, you're being raised as a son by someone with great providence? Not really. They're blood-related. At most, I'm a godson. How can a godson compare to a biological son or daughter? The yellow gourd showed sincere envy. Even if he's a godson, he's still a son. I'm so envious that you're reunited and raised as sons. Boo-hoo. I really want to be a son. A godson is fine too. It doesn't matter if I'm a son or a godson. Anyway, I'm living a good life now. You don't know, little 8 and little 9 still have the supplies their mother left for them. It's as boundless as the ocean. They can swim as much as they want in it. I've swum in there a few times. It's so comfortable. I want to swim too. TSK, your master treats you like a treasure. How could he allow you to go? It's not up to him. Do you think I don't know what happened just now? After a while, I, as the master, will accept my loss and will no longer be my master. Ha ha ha. I will soon be able to become a son. That makes sense. By the way, you're just my godson in the past. Don't even think about climbing over my head. Understood. We are all godson. You should tell me quickly. What is Mother's sea of vitality like? Wait, how's our mother now? You'll know soon enough. I'm looking forward to it. Let's hurry up and finish it. 3 gourds were fighting, and one was chatting. The 10th Crown Prince was so angry that his eyes were about to crack and smoke was coming out of his 7 orifices. There was actually such a thing in the world. The magical equipment that he had cultivated with his life for who knows how many years was actually not listening to his command. He obviously didn't know the crux of the matter, and the current situation was normal. The immortal slaying flying dagger hidden in the yellow skin gourd was one of the few killing weapons in the primordial age. Only supreme-grade, connate numinous treasures could withstand it, and even harder to shield its killing aura. On the other hand, the yellow-skin gourd didn't release the immortal-slaying flying dagger. The dagger could only stare helplessly. Apart from being a supreme-grade, connate numinous treasure, the yellow-skin gourd was also a connate life form. It naturally had its own consciousness. How could it not know that releasing the immortal-slaying flying dagger would deal with his own brother? Whether his brother was afraid of the immortal-slaying flying dagger was one matter, but whether he released it or not was another matter anyway. He also hoped that his side would quickly lose and he would be defeated so that he could reunite with his 3 brothers and sisters. Not listening to his command and having no moral integrity was the most important thing. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. A spear appeared out of thin air, emitting black smoke as it rushed over. As soon as it met, it drilled a hole in the 10th prince's long spear. Following that, it pierced through the 10th prince's thigh. Immediately, blood flowed out, but it was immediately engulfed in flames. Seeing this, the 10th prince was scared out of his wits. God-slaying spear. It was actually the God-slaying spear? My God, why did the God-slaying spear appear here? I admit defeat. I admit defeat. You can't admit defeat. It hasn't been 4 hours yet. It's still early. Continue. Today we, the Calabash brothers, will join forces to fight the Demon Crown Prince. How can we not write a beautiful story? Then, another Calabash popped out. Looking carefully, this Calabash who joined last was in a phantom state. It said excitedly, "Let's go together. How can I be left out?" But the phantom opened its small mouth, and 2 Cheelants suddenly appeared. They brazenly entered the battle and surrounded the 10th prince. Then, the number of people in the chat group became 5. 5 Calabashes gathered to chat. It was the spirit clone of the Grand Master of Heaven's Calabash. He sensed it and rushed over to join in the fun. For a moment, the Calabash and the Calabash had a meeting, and it was very lively. The 10th Crown Prince was increasingly at a disadvantage. He was unable to parry or retaliate. But the 10th Prince's Calabash still clapped his hands and shouted from time to time, "Come on, come on." But the target of his cheering was not the 10th Prince, but the enemy of the 10th Prince. That this battle could be considered as a new beginning, and it was full of fun. Any expert from the ancient times would shed tears of sympathy if they saw such a situation. With 4 Calabashes and the God-slaying spear working together, even the Demon Crown Prince might not be able to win. Not to mention the Demon Crown Prince, who was betrayed by his own magic treasure. The 10th Prince felt like he was being beaten every minute and every second. He could not help but cry out miserably. "What's the time limit? Say something." "For hours," Abai said. "How long has it been?" "It's almost over, right?" "It's not even an hour now. Take your time." The 10th Prince growled in despair. He felt his vision turn black. In other words, he still had to endure 3 hours of crazy ravaging before he could be released. What the fuck is this? The 10th Prince held his head with one hand and covered his crotch with the other. He shouted in grief and indignation. "Can you stop using the God-slaying spear? I won't resist anymore." Then he squatted on the ground. "Yenshursi, go back. We don't need you here." Abai gave the order. Yenshursi flew away unwillingly. The situation was better than him. The Calabashes were having a meeting, so he had no say in it. Next, punches, kicks, and hammers landed on the 10th Prince's body continuously. It was an unprecedented, crazy beating that would make anyone who heard it cry. It was purely a one-sided beating. The 10th Prince was like a rubber ball that was being beaten and kicked around. In less than 2 hours, his body was swollen twice. But why would the Calabashes care about this? They felt that it was very satisfying to chat and fight at the same time. So, they continued to beat and talk at the same time. They were already used to it. They giggled. "How fun. Outside. Demon Empress," she frowned. "Can you come out by herself?" Demon Crown Prince pursed his lips. "You're thinking too much. There are at least 3 Calabashes inside. Do you think he can come out after beating him up? This is a supreme-grade treasure that the Grand Pure One has nurtured for his entire life. Not to mention him, Even we would have to put in a lot of effort to get out if we accidentally fall into it. Then isn't he going to lose for sure? When he flew into a rage, he had already lost. You have to thank Brother Little Duo for not wanting to take his life. If he had the slightest bit of evil intentions, dying 100 times over wouldn't be a big deal. Demon Crown Prince sighed. Demon Empress rolled her eyes. This brat plotted to steal my son's treasure, and I actually have to thank him for showing mercy. She sighed as she thought about it. The Grand Pure One and the Grand Pure One had already handed over their calabashes. Her son was nothing. Finally, for hours passed. Under everyone's gaze, the purple gold calabash suddenly shook violently. With a soft thud, the 10th prince seemed to have appeared out of thin air and landed on the ground. However, everyone's eyes trembled violently. The 10th prince who came out was like a rubber ball. His entire body seemed to be swollen several times. He rolled freely on the ground and didn't stop for a long time. Demon Empress widened her eyes as she looked at the rolling ball. That's my son? My son has been beaten to this state? So, Round, who beat him up? Isn't this too ruthless? Without waiting for the Demon Empress to pursue the matter, and before she could step forward to protect Xiaoduo, who was standing outside the gourd and waiting for the result, flung out a beam of light almost immediately. The grandson True Fire immediately poured down on the 10th prince's body. To the Golden Crow, this thing was the best healing panacea, an eternal natal divine medicine. After a while, the 10th prince, whose body and appearance had returned to normal, stood up. Only his eyes were still a little hazy. His mind was probably destroyed too badly. His body swayed, and he turned a few rounds dizzily before he saw Xiaoduo's figure. He shook his head sadly. I lost. Without saying anything else, he removed the soul binding with the yellow skin calabash. The immortal slaying flying blade was good. However, when the immortal slaying flying blade encountered the calabash of the same origin, it actually produced such a reaction. It had long exceeded the 10th prince's expectations. If he didn't experience this personally, he wouldn't dare to believe it even if he was beaten to death. Anyway, the 10th prince didn't want such a treasure now. Well, mainly, he didn't dare to take it anymore. If you agree to bet, you must accept defeat. You dare to do and dare to accept the consequences. The 10th prince is really open and above board. Xiaoduo put away the yellow skin calabash with a smile. Then he poured out a 9-transformation golden pill from the calabash and handed it over. This is a small token of appreciation from Xiao. Don't mind it. The 10th prince smiled bitterly and didn't argue. He put away the golden pill and said, Xiaoduo, your goal has been the immortal slaying flying blade from the beginning, right? Chapter 1398. Xiaoduo smiled and said, that is indeed the case. This is a karma that cannot be avoided. Therefore, this battle must be fought. The 10th crown prince snorted and said, I guessed at the moment you brought up the challenge. Haha, I'm not as skilled as you. It is not an injustice to lose to a person of great fortune like you. Then he threw the elixir into his mouth and sat down cross-legged to heal his wounds. The grandson True Fire could heal the internal and external injuries of the pure-blooded Golden Crow, but the greatest damage to the 10th crown prince came from his heart and mind. Although the 9 transformations golden elixir could not heal these injuries, it could greatly increase the 10th crown prince's cultivation and repair his mind. It could be said to be the best elixir at the moment. So Xiaoduo laughed and said gracefully, you are indeed the crown prince of the Demon Emperor. You know when to pick up and when to let go. Everyone nodded inwardly when they heard this. The 10th crown prince's gracefulness was indeed admirable. The only mistake was that he accepted the challenge when he could have avoided it. Firstly, he knew that Xiaoduo wanted to steal his treasures, but his imperial father and imperial mother were clearly here, yet they didn't stop him. Their tacit approval was obvious, so he couldn't avoid it. Secondly, he also had a greedy heart and hoped for a fluke. After all, if he won, he would have a great advantage. Under the influence of his greed, he knew that his chances of winning weren't high, but he still wanted to fight with all his might. It was due to the combination of several factors that the outcome of this battle was already decided. Or else that, with the yellow-skinned calabash in front of him, Zhuo was already determined to scheme. Furthermore, with the karma of Xiao, it was almost inevitable that the 10th Crown Prince would be killed by Zhuo when he had the chance. That why did the phrase, a small token of appreciation from Xiao, not have a double meaning? Of course, after investigating Zhuo, the 10th Crown Prince already had misgivings. This was also the key to his compromise. After all, the rumored Iron Fist young master had a vicious temperament and treacherous methods. Everyone knew this in their hearts. This man would definitely not show mercy, especially in order to achieve his goal. He would do anything by fair means or foul. In addition, this guy was shameless and shameless. He was extremely dangerous. It would be better to end things as soon as possible. That at this moment that a woman's voice came from the sky. She said indifferently, "The 10th Crown Prince of the Demon Clan, Crown Prince Yuan. I've heard so much about you. First, there was Hong Jun, then there was heaven. Dao Monarch Luya is even before you. How domineering." Everyone looked up in the direction of the voice. A white cloud in the sky suddenly transformed into the appearance of a woman. The person who came was dressed in snow-white clothes. She was cold and unapproachable. She was extremely beautiful. When Zhuo Xiaoyan saw her, she instinctively called out, "Sister Yin Xiao?" All the demon gods raised their heads in unison, their faces solemn. "Fairy Yin Xiao." The 10th Crown Prince let out a long sigh and said, "Fairy, how have you been?" Yin Xiao first smiled as Zhuo and Zhuo Xiaoyan before saying to the 10th Crown Prince, "Dao Monarch Luya, that's what I wanted to say to you. It's good that you've been well since we last met." Her gaze was cold, and her face was frosty. Her aura was cold, and her aura was like a sword that was carved into her bones. She bit her lips and said word by word, "For so many years, I've been praying to the heavens at the bottom of Qilin Cliff day and night. I prayed that you, Dao Monarch Luya, would be healthy and have a long lifespan. I prayed that you wouldn't meet a strong enemy and die in the hands of others. I prayed that you would have a smooth journey and that you would live until I leave Qilin Cliff." These words were full of praises for the good and kind. But in everyone's ears, there was not a single person who didn't shudder, including the Demon Emperor Dongwang and the Demon Empress. Their expressions changed drastically. Every word seemed to be praising and praying for kindness. However, the hatred in every word was so deep that it made one's heart bleed. It was a ghastly sight. It was a bone-deep hatred that could not be extinguished for generations. The 10th Crown Prince said softly, "Fairy Yin Xiao, why do you have to be like this? The past is over." Yin Xiao smiled coldly and said coldly, "The past is over? I know that you really want the past to be over. However, it's all thanks to you that I can survive at the bottom of Qilin Cliff for so many years. If not for the fact that you're still in this world, my Dao heart would have shattered long ago. I would have collapsed and died. If not for the fact that you're still in this world, I would have died under Ronding's Dao heart attack. Just because you're still alive, I can't die no matter what. Just because you're still in this world, even if the saints and Dao ancestors are gathered, I won't die without a fight." "Luya!" Yin Xiao suddenly roared into the sky. The wind and clouds surged and the world changed. "Do you still remember Zhao Gongming? Do you still remember my two sisters? Luya, you're weaker than others. When you schemed to harm others, did you ever think that you're the son of the Demon Emperor, Dongwang's nephew? Are you worthy of your identity? Are you worthy of the title of Demon Crown Prince? The past is over, with all the karma in front of you. How can the past be over?" Yin Zhao's aura was like a rainbow. Her eyes slowly turned blood red. Her previous otherworldly immortal beauty was no longer there. She was filled with a murderous aura. "You've just fought and are injured. Although you can do despicable and shameless things, I, Yin Xiao, can't do anything to take advantage of others. I'll give you 4 hours to recover. After 4 hours, we'll fight to the death in front of your Demon Emperor Palace, in front of your father and mother. We'll end everything." After saying that, Yun Xiao stood in midair with her hands behind her back. Her cold eyes looked at the 10th crown prince without blinking. The demon emperor rose on a cloud and said calmly, "Fairy Yun Xiao, I'm Di Jun. From the perspective of the perfected enchanting, Fairy Yun Xiao should call me Uncle Master. However, that's fine. Does Fairy Yun Xiao think so?" Fairy Yun Xiao cupped her hands and bowed respectfully. Disciple of Jie School, Yun Xiao greets Uncle Master Demon Emperor. His words and actions actually followed the proper etiquette and were very strict. Di Jun sighed softly and said, "I'm ashamed to be addressed as Uncle Master by you. If Uncle Master has something to say, why don't you speak frankly? What you did back then was indeed a mistake. Furthermore, it was a grave mistake." The Demon Emperor said slowly, "Your master mentioned this matter to me in the Purple Cloud Palace some time ago. I once promised Senior Brother Tong Tian that I would definitely bring you one to the Green Touring Palace to beg for forgiveness. About this, disciple niece Yun Xiao should know." Yun Xiao said slowly, "When Master returned, he told me that Uncle Master and Auntie Demon Emperor wanted to bring you over to beg for forgiveness. However, the karma of the grudge back then was caused by my family being killed for no reason. Therefore, Master did not intend to make a decision for me. Instead, he specially asked me how he planned to deal with this matter." "What did you say?" The Demon Emperor sighed in his heart. "I told Master that the blood feud is irreconcilable. I don't want others to settle the karma on my behalf. I'm unwilling, even if Master wants to settle it personally. I, Yun Xiao, have a deep feud with this Tao, Lord Luya. We can't live under the same sky. Either he will be consigned to eternal damnation, or I, Yun Xiao, will die. We can't live under the same sky." Fairy Yun Xiao stood in the clouds with her white robes fluttering. Her expression was stern, and her words were like swords. "I understand that this person is the beloved son of Uncle Master Demon Emperor and Auntie's flesh and blood. However, this hatred cannot be reduced. Even if I have to die, I have to settle the score with this person. Uncle Master, please know about this matter. If Uncle Master and Auntie can't understand or punish me, I will bear the responsibility." After Yun Xiao finished speaking, she bowed to the Demon Emperor and stood up after a while. Yun Xiao's words were extremely firm. Although she was gentle and courteous, there was no room for negotiation. The Demon Emperor and Demon Empress both let out a deep sigh. The Demon Empress, Shihi's gaze was conflicted. There weren't many of these ancient powerhouses who were truly unreasonable. No one would really not care about the word karma. Back then, during the God Confirmant War, the 10th prince was the only one among the princes of the demon race who was traveling outside. He changed his name to Luya and plunged in. Moreover, the matter had truly deteriorated to the point of no return. It began when Luya joined and shot Zhao Gongming to death with the nailhead 7-arrow book. Chan School had no way out. All of a sudden, the entire Jie School went crazy. The matter worsened and expanded to the point where the 12 golden immortals of Chan School could not suppress it and were no match for it. In the end, the saint personally took action. Zhao Gongming was the elder brother of the 3 Yun Xiao sisters. The 3 Xiao immortals came out of the mountain to take revenge and anger, but 2 of them died on the spot. The reason was because of Luya. Now, Yun Xiao had just escaped from the Qilin Cliff after being suppressed for tens of millions of years. On the other hand, the 10th prince, who had changed his name to Luya, was still carefree for so many years. Today, when the enemy met, their eyes were exceptionally red. Even if she was crushed, even if the entire demon race had to protect the 10th prince, Yun Xiao would fight head-on. She would not rest until she was dead. She has sighed and said, "Yun Xiao, I understand your thoughts very well. I also understand that this is your obsession. Your elder brother and 2 younger sisters died directly or indirectly in Yuan's hands. It's understandable that you want to take revenge. It's only right." She has said indifferently, "I'll allow you to fight Yuan in 4 hours. However, I have to say something first." Shia's gaze was cold as she said indifferently, You have to take revenge for your elder brother's death. If my son dies, I have to take revenge too. We've long understood right and wrong. There's no need to say more. However, as parents, we can't accept the tragic death of our beloved son. It has nothing to do with right or wrong. She has sighed. Yin Xiao, you have to understand. Yuan was definitely not Yin Zhao's match. Once they fought, it would be a dead end. The Demon Emperor and Demon Empress were well aware of that. What happened back then was indeed Yuan's fault. As the rulers of the demon race, we can't confuse right and wrong. That's why we discussed compensation with senior brother Tong Tian many times. We didn't want the two families to hurt the harmony. If you insist on killing us, we'll let you kill us. After all, we were in the wrong first. It's only right to repay karma with our lives. However, once Yuan dies, karma will evolve into the grudge between you and us, Yin Xiao. In other words, it's the grudge between Jie School and us demons. We can't let go of your elder brother's revenge, but we definitely can't let go of my son's revenge. She has sighed. Yin Xiao, I'm not trying to scare you. You know that. I'm just stating the truth. We don't want to go to that step. We really don't want to. I also understand your plan. You want to kill yourself immediately after killing Yuan to end the karma. However, Jie School has just returned, and you, Yin Xiao, as the first disciple of the outer sect, died in our demon race. It's obvious at a glance that what happens in the future is uncontrollable. She has said earnestly, I also want to plead for my son, but Yin Xiao, you have to consider it. After all, although your second sister, third sister, and elder brother's physical bodies are dead, their essence souls are officials in the heavenly court. As long as they're willing, they can still see each other every day. However, if you and Yuan die in this battle, you'll be completely annihilated. This point is different. That's all. Yin Xiao, your uncle Master Demon Emperor, and I won't object to your decision. Shihe looked at Yin Xiao and sighed. Fairy Yin Zhao's gaze was cold and unchanged. Just as she was about to speak, Xiaoduo suddenly jumped out and said loudly, Sister Yin Xiao, I have something to say to you in private. Chapter 1399. Yin Zhao's intention to kill Zhao Gongming was extremely firm. She did not hate others. Even if Zhao Gongming and the two girls had died in Guangqingzi's hands, Yin Xiao did not hate him so much. At that time, the god roll was already halfway through. It had nothing to do with you, Luya. Yet, you suddenly appeared at that time. What does it have to do with you? What does the matters of Chan's school have to do with you? Who do you have an old relationship with? Who are you friends with? Are you friends? No one can touch you in any aspect. In the end, you suddenly appeared and plotted against my brother for the sake of a sense of existence. Even if you kill him head-on, I won't have any complaints. However, you can't defeat him head-on, so you actually used a scheme. Yin Xiao had too much hatred in her heart, although the Demon Empress had already explained all the consequences clearly. Yin Xiao understood very well. However, she would never give up. So Xiaoduo leaped up and arrived beside Yin Xiao. He set up a soundproof barrier. Sister Yin Xiao, does the sect master know that you're here today? Master doesn't know. Then you came in the wrong place today. Yes, it's only right to take revenge. So Xiaoduo said patiently. However, isn't it too risky to charge into the Demon Emperor Palace with such fanfare? The Demon Emperor and Demon Empress understand right and wrong. That's why they allowed you to take revenge. What if they don't? If they attack together, how many lives do you have to fill this place? Not to mention, you killed the 10th prince first. It's equivalent to giving others a handle. Wouldn't that be even more uncontrollable? When can't we take revenge? Do we have to kill our way to their headquarters to report? So Xiaoduo did not understand. He felt that Fairy Yun Xiao, who was extremely beautiful, was more or less a little silly. Just like that, he charged over alone. If I don't do that, it'll be difficult to vent my anger. So Xiaoduo was speechless. It was very difficult for him to understand the thoughts of these ancient people. To Yun Xiao, killing Luya in public was the best way to vent his anger and make his thoughts clear. As long as he achieved that goal, it would be worth it even if he died here. However, in the eyes of Xiaoduo, this method was extremely stupid. Why couldn't they kill him? Just go out and find a random corner to kill him. As long as your hands and feet are clean, who would know that you did it? Do they have to make it so grand? Sister Yin Xiao, I'll give you a suggestion. Please accept it on account that I still have some feelings for your GS school. Normal channels don't work. So Xiaoduo had to find another way. He had no choice but to force her to repay his kindness. This was because if the current situation continued to develop, the 10th Prince Yuan would definitely die. Yin Xiao would also die after killing the 10th Prince. So Xiaoduo did not care whether Yuan died or not. But if Cloud Sky died here, this matter would be huge. It would definitely lead to an all-out war between the demons and Jie School. That was for sure. Back then, Zhao Gongming's death had caused an irreversible situation. Yin Zhao's position in Jie School was more important than Zhao Gongming's. Moreover, Jie School had just returned. Yin Xiao was someone they could not afford to lose. Yin Xiao frowned slightly and said, "Tell me, beat Yuan up here. Even if you cripple his cultivation, it's fine. But don't really kill him." So Xiaoduo said, "Let's talk about the future in the future. Now, let's vent our anger first. Sister Yin Xiao, what do you think?" So Xiaoduo tried his best to persuade her. Yin Xiao frowned. Clearly, she was not very interested in such a suggestion. She was also not very willing. This guy has done so many things. If you kill him so easily, wouldn't it be letting him off easy? So Xiaoduo said bewitchingly, "Let's cripple him first and slowly deal with him in the future. Every time we deal with him, we'll vent our anger." How good is that? Yin Zhao's eyes flickered slightly. That makes sense. Then let's do that. Yes. So Xiaoduo finally heaved a sigh of relief. Encountering such a stubborn girl, it was really not easy to convince her. Yin Zhao's personality was comparable to that of Zhuo Xiaoyan's. It was very difficult to change the fact that she had made a decision. So Xiaoduo was forcing her to repay him for his kindness and persuading her with reason and emotion. He finally persuaded her. Besides, your brother and sister are in the heavenly courts. Although they are on the investiture of the gods and can't roam around the world like before, and their freedom is limited, they are not completely dead. You can still see them at any time. So Xiaoduo persuaded. Besides, they were just itinerant cultivators in the past. What merit did they have? But now, who in the world doesn't know them? Who doesn't worship them? Yin Zhao's eyes were filled with thoughts. Although Zhuo Xiao's words were somewhat out of context for Yin Xiao, it was not without reason. Yin Xiao was a reasonable person after all. She thought for a moment. She sighed and said, "After today, I'll make a trip to the heavenly courts. That heavenly courts doesn't seem to have shown up until now. We'll find them eventually." Yin Xiao said quietly. He finally coaxed her. How tiring. It's more tiring than coaxing Yin Yin Cat. So Xiaoduo wiped his sweat. For hours later, in the sky above the Demon Emperor Palace, a crushing battle had unfolded. Yin Xiao held down the 10th Prince, Yuan, and beat him until his flesh and blood splattered everywhere. In the end, she punched through the 10th Prince's dantian, broke his sea of qi, and shattered his demon core. She even smashed her palm on his head and destroyed his sea of consciousness. Demon Empress, she trembled all over and gritted her teeth. Her face flushed red and then turned pale. She wanted to soar up and fight several times, but seeing that Yin Xiao did not have the intention to kill, she could only endure it. In the end, the 10th Crown Prince was beaten until he was like a pile of mud. He fell unconscious on the high platform. Yin Xiao also floated down. "Martial nephew, you crippled Yuan, destroyed her cultivation, and destroyed her foundation." Yin Xiao stood in front of the Demon Emperor and said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner, "I'll let martial uncle deal with me." The Demon Emperor hesitated for a long time. Finally, he sighed and said, "The grudge ends here. You may go." The Demon Emperor was also angry, but when he thought about how the demon race was already in trouble and was in the wrong first, it was already good that he could keep his life. In other words, it was lucky that Yin Xiao beat him up. If he was carried back after being beaten up like this outside, this grudge would still be formed. Now, the demon emperor could only watch helplessly, but he could not say anything else. Farewell, Yun Shao. Yun Shao bowed respectfully and also bowed to the demon empress. I'm sorry, Annie. The demon empress' lips quivered, and her eyes were complicated. Yun Shao, you won't beat him again in the future, right? Yun Shao hesitated and said, if he recovers. If we meet again in the future, I might have to beat him again. You're such a simple-minded girl. Can't you say a few words to make me feel better? The demon empress sighed and waved her hand. Get lost quickly. Yin Shao nodded and bowed. She turned and left on a cloud. When she reached the clouds, she stopped and thought carefully. He murmured, what little duo said makes sense. Now that things have come to this, as long as they don't mess with me in the future, there's nothing wrong with letting this matter go. After all, if they had listened to Master's words and closed the island, there would be nothing that could threaten them. Sigh, I'll find an opportunity to look for them. The white cloud left leisurely. Zhou Xiaoduo stayed in the demon race for half a year. Then he returned to the astral soul's continent. He began to train Li Chenglong and the others with all his might. Zhuo Changlu and Wu Yuding had also gained a lot from their trip to the demon race this time. After they returned, they trained Yu Dongtian and his son, as well as Yun Zhonghu and his wife with all their might. The battle outside was earth-shattering. On the Umno Alliance's side, after the 8 Zhu Wu returned, they were indeed unwilling to be left out. They quickly joined the battle. Today, they would fight this person. Tomorrow, they would fight that person. Not long after, all the factions, except for the human race of the astral souls, had been beaten up without exception. They had also offended everyone. They had barged into the spirit clan to ask for spiritual herbs and injured many of them. They had deliberately killed many of the demons. The demons were also old opponents. When they met them, they would kill them. As for Jie School, Chan School, and the Western sect, which had nothing to do with them, the medicine Buddha of the Western sect was crippled by the 2 Zhu Wu. There were also many Vajra guardians. The Zhu Wu swept over with red eyes and killed many of them. Saint Jiayin was furious and personally attacked. The Zhu Wu immediately retreated. When they retreated, they encountered the goddess of Wudong and fought. The goddess of Wudong escaped with serious injuries. Daoist Duo Bao chased after her in anger. The Zhu Wu had already left. On the way, they met a Daoist. It was Perfected Tai. He was just a little bad-mouthed, but he was beaten up by the Zhu Wu. Perfected Yuding risked his life to save Perfected Tai, so the people of Chan School were collectively furious. We didn't provoke the Wu people. What's wrong? Therefore, they began to fight with the Wu people. The flood which felt bitter in her mouth all the time. For so many years, she had been dreaming of saving the Zhu Wu. Now, she had really done it, and the Zhu Wu had all come out. However, the flood which only had one thought now. Whichever faction was more powerful, she would lock them up again. Before they came out, the Wu people had almost no enemies. When they came out, except for the astral souls, everyone else was an enemy. The Umno Alliance was fighting in all directions. The flood which felt that she was in a terrible fix and was mentally and physically exhausted. At first, she was still trying to clean up her mess, but then she realized that she had already fallen into a shit pit. How could she clean up? Suddenly, the entire world was an enemy. She had no choice but to fight. You really know how to cause trouble. Sometimes the flood which came to Zhuochanglu to drink, not to drink, but purely to complain. Previously, I could still control Aihua and the others, but now, I can't control them. If I hadn't built a large number of heroic soul passes back then, the entire continent would have been destroyed. However, they still enjoy it very much. Every day, they say things like the entire world is an enemy. Why should I be afraid? Sigh, this is fucking. Zhuochanglu couldn't do anything about that. He could only say, drink, drink. Now, the 8 races were in a chaotic war, plus Jie School. The flames of war were everywhere. Only the astral souls was still peaceful. They even slowly recovered some technological communication and could broadcast some news. However, everyone, including the poor people who didn't know martial arts, knew. The flames of war were about to burn. This last paradise could not help but be plunged into misery and suffering. Many couples who often quarreled no longer quarreled. Every day, they would watch over each other, talk, play games, and quietly stay at home, enjoying the last moments of peace. In the blink of an eye, 3 years had passed. The battle outside had almost turned the 8 continents into ruins. The flames of war had finally ignited the astral souls. In the end, only one race could survive the clear heavenly tribulation. The human race hadn't moved at all. The outside world had been destroyed, but they hadn't fired a single shot. Wasn't it too easy? The human race would definitely be the enemy in the end. Suddenly, the astral souls became the target of public criticism. It's finally the final moment. I'll take 2 days off to organize my thoughts. Chapter 1400. Dad, I can't figure out why we have to clear the heavenly tribulation. What's the point of clearing the heavenly tribulation? Xiaoduo was puzzled. The clear sky calamity will easily wipe out a clan. Why can't it maintain the status quo like it is now, where all the clans can coexist and go on expeditions occasionally? Instead, it can stimulate one's fighting spirit and will not dare to slack off. It will also give one the motivation to become stronger. Why must the other clans be wiped out and only one dominant clan is left? Even the so-called eternal protagonist is nothing more than a title. Absolute power leads to absolute corruption. When a certain race becomes dominant, it will only cause the population of that race to expand without limit. There will be no pressure to survive at all. Perhaps in 10,000 years or hundreds of thousands of years, it will be difficult to escape the end of a lack of spiritual energy and resources. If something goes wrong, all living beings will step onto the path of extinction. I really can't understand. Zhuo Xiaoduo's words were full of distress. Zhuo Changlu sighed and said, "How can I not understand this? The human race and the astral souls once went through a period of population expansion. If it weren't for the meteorite shower that killed more than 70% of the human race and the return of the Dao League and the Umno Alliance, the human race and the astral souls might have gone extinct due to the extreme consumption of resources. However, the current situation is not something that you and I can change. I even suspect that the current situation is not the automatic operation of the heavenly axiom of the ancestral land, but the arrangement of the existence beyond the heavenly axiom. In a world like this, we are strong and have our own means. It is not difficult for us to live forever. However, for the weak, whether they are the human race, the demon race, or other races, it is a disaster. The so-called weakness is the original sin, and it is shown in such a bloody way. Look around. There are so many experts of different races in this world. There are tens of millions of them. Zhuo Zhonglu sighed and said, no matter which one of these powerhouses makes a move, they have the strength to flatten a human city with a population of 1 million. As for the experts of a human clan, such as your Not Enough Brigade, any one of them can easily wipe out a medium-sized city of the Demon Clan or the Demon Clan. They can even retreat unscathed. It's as easy as a trip. That's undeniable, right? So Xiaoduo nodded. Let me ask you, when you were slaughtering the demons, did you have the slightest bit of compassion in your hearts? Is what Changlu asked. When you were slaughtering monsters and Azuras, were there any times when you didn't have the heart to kill them? Zhuo Xiaoduo shook his head. No, that's it. That's the crux of the problem. So Changlu said lightly. Because the education we receive since childhood has determined our basic worldview, values, and morals. Therefore, we don't feel that there's anything wrong with this kind of killing. After such a massacre, I even feel that I've contributed to the future of the human race. It's a great sense of accomplishment. People have the same mind, and their hearts share the same principle. Isn't it the same for the experts of the various clans? In the long run, the experts of each generation will only become more and more vicious and cruel to the outsiders. The rhythm and style of this world will only become more and more cruel. Zhuo Changlu sighed. But what are the sins of living creatures? Is being weak really the original sin? Born without the aptitude for cultivation, can we only be reduced to food, hunted, and slaughtered in this world? On this point, whether it's the Demon Clan, or the Azura clan, the root of the problem is the same. We think the demons are cruel, but when we slaughter the cities of the demons, what's the difference in the eyes of the demons? To be fair, when they look at us, they think we're delicious. How is it different from when we cook delicious meat? It's just a difference in the education of the various clans since childhood. There's no need to be harsh. Under such racial differences, it's difficult to unify the thoughts. If there's no restriction in this world, it will continue to be chaotic for a long time. Even if the experts of the various clans join hands and reach a consensus to promote a peaceful situation, it's just a terrifying balance. There's still a hidden danger, and it's just a temporary delay. And this situation is bound to continue until the end of time. Even if there's no cleansing heavenly tribulation, the final outcome will still be the same as the cleansing heavenly tribulation now. A certain clan will be completely strengthened, or they'll exterminate the other clans, or they'll suppress the other clans to establish the absolute right to speak and achieve a de facto unity. This is the inevitable trend, the inevitable result. It is only at that time that we will be able to completely eradicate the problem of becoming food for other races at any time and place and become extinct. So Changlu let out a long sigh and said, "As long as the two clans coexist in this world, this kind of thing will never be avoided." After such a detailed analysis, at least I'm full of admiration for the powerful figure who went beyond the heavenly Tao and directly started the cleansing heavenly tribulation in this world. Only at the initial stage of the return of the clans, the cruel war that's bound to come, can be brought to an end as soon as possible and establish a lasting peace for generations to come. Even if there will be wars in the future, there will be the rise and fall of dynasties, and there will be the change of forces. It will only happen among the clans. And no matter how cruel the war between the clans is, there won't be any bloodshed like before. At least in my opinion, once and for all, this is both a crisis and an opportunity for long-term peace and prosperity. In the future, no matter whether it's the Monster Clan, the Demon Clan, the Wu people, or the Spirit Clan left in this world, as long as the unification is achieved, there will be a developed and civilized society in the future. All kinds of systems, laws, inventions, and creations will appear. So Changlu said, just like the development of the land of astral souls in the past thousands of years. Science, technology, civilization, economy. Our development has proved that although we have developed these things, as long as there is a powerful enemy, everything is meaningless. As long as the enemy comes, the so-called civilization will be gone in a day. Only after the war, after the unification is achieved, and after the redevelopment, can we have a long-term prosperity. Otherwise, no matter how valuable, meaningful, and promising the research results are, they will just be like a flash in the pan, like a bubble in a dream. When a giant demon beast's iron hooves fall, the entire city will be gone. How can we talk about science, technology, civilization, and prosperity? This is what Changlu said. Maybe in the future, we could develop powerful weapons with only science and technology to destroy those giant demon beasts. But for now, it's unrealistic. Of course, the person Zhuo Changlu was talking to was not Zhuo Xiaoduo himself. He looked at the people around him and said earnestly, "The person who set this up doesn't care whether the only race that will survive in the future is human or other races. But we have to care about it, and we have to fight for it. We have to do everything we can. Even if we have to sacrifice everything, we have to fight for the chance that human beings will become the only intelligent race in the world in the future and dominate the world. Although the time limit of the protagonist of this world is not eternal, it doesn't matter if it's hundreds of thousands of years or tens of thousands of years. Isn't it good to have that kind of time?" Zhuo Changlu sighed. That was true, but in the face of so many opponents, so many legends, to fight for the chance that human beings would be the only winner, it was more than difficult. They had no confidence at all. If that's the case, there's still one more problem. That is, what about those ultimate experts? Li Chenglong, who had been listening carefully, raised the question first. Those people should be very difficult to kill, or maybe they won't die in battle at all. Everyone nodded. They all knew who Li Chenglong was referring to. Banish them. So what Chonglu said, what Chenglong is worried about is a problem that we will only face when we reach the end. During this period, the Demon Emperor, Demon Empress, and I have been discussing this problem all the time. That is, where should those eliminated clans go? Since there are ultimate experts in this world in charge, how can they be completely destroyed? Decline is already the limit. However, the decline of a clan means that the clan's luck is not restored. It's a foregone conclusion that they will become weaker day by day. So, in order to ensure that the clan still has room to reproduce, where should they go? Zhua Chonglu said carefully. The conclusion that we have come to, or the relatively feasible method, is to use the Grotto Heaven treasure to carry a small number of the clan's young and leave the ancestral land to wander the starry sky. The clan's mighty experts will open up a chance of survival for them. Then, they will find a place to settle down. Life and death will depend on luck. However, this ancestral land will not allow them to return. Even then, they will be reduced to the evil clan of the heavenly axiom because of their luck, and it will be difficult for them to survive. In other words, keep your orthodoxy and spirit, but your sect master, and clan leader will have to leave the ancestral land. After the unification, in this world, as the ancestral land, there will still be the Western sect, the Jie sect, the Chan sect, the Taoist sect, the Fiend sect, the Spirit sect, the Azura race, the Magi race, and so on. However, there won't be any specific method of inheritance for all of these. They can only keep their orthodoxy and spirit. The real demons, sorcerers, Buddhas, and Taoists can no longer exist in this world. Even the ultimate experts of each clan will be expelled by the heavenly axiom. Zhua Chonglu smiled faintly. Let this world be dominated by only one clan. Provide the clan with the greatest amount of resources and let them recover in the shortest time possible. Then, they can reproduce and develop. The cycle of yin and yang. This is the true meaning of this clear, heavenly tribulation. Everyone murmured slowly. Clear heavenly tribulation. Clear heavenly tribulation. So this is the clear heavenly dharma. Therefore, all the ancient experts have come out to fight for a chance of victory. They want to settle all their grudges at this stage, because this is the last chance. If they miss this chance, most of the ultimate experts will wander to the boundless starry sky. No one knows where they will settle down in the future. They won't have the chance to settle their grudges. These are things that every saint can see. The so-called clear heavenly tribulation is probably like this. From now on, there will be no more conflicts between clans. Only one clan will rule, and the prosperity will last for a long time. Zhua Chonglu said slowly, that's the principle. However, with the strength of human beings, we don't have the confidence to say that we can become the final world dweller. These words made the hearts of everyone present heavy. From now on, there will be no more appreciation for each other, friends from other clans, because everyone will have to fight to the death in the end. Even Xiao Duo's godfather. If in the end, only the Wu people and humans are left to fight, he won't give in. Actually, this clear heavenly tribulation has another purpose, Zhua Chonglu said. What's the purpose? Liberation. Zhua Chonglu said deeply. Liberation of the saints. The saints are inseparable from the heavenly Tao. However, this clear heavenly tribulation has given the saints a chance to break the shackles. Therefore, the saints are the most excited, because this time they can break free from the shackles. There's no need to expel them. The saints will leave on their own, because they are finally free. Zhua Chonglu said with a sarcastic tone. Everyone was silent. Sure enough, there were gains and losses, and there were joys and sorrows. To the saints, the crisis of extinction was freedom. The flames of war are now approaching this side, Zhuo Zhonglu said solemnly. You have all cultivated in the Tower of Annihilation for 1,000 years. Your foundation has improved, and you have reached the peak of the human race. So, the future of the human race depends on you. Li Chenglong, Long Yuxing, and the others' eyes all lit up. Li Chenglong and the others were not the only ones who were cultivating in the Space Extermination Tower. All the geniuses of the human tribe were cultivating in the Space Extermination Tower to further their studies. At this stage of cultivation, they had basically improved everything that could be improved. There was no room for improvement. As for those that could not be improved, that was naturally the only way. Perhaps in the cruelest battles of life and death, there was still some enlightenment. However, when it came to pure cultivation, it was basically useless. After all, there was still the limitation of one's innate talent. No matter how much one wanted everyone to be like a dragon, it was impossible to make everyone like a dragon in this world. This was the limitation. The majority of cultivators who had reached the Tao integration stage were unable to take another step forward no matter what they did. Even more people who had reached the ascension stage or the return to profound realm were unable to take another step forward. And for such a cultivator with limited talent, even if you forcefully provided them with elixirs and high-level cultivators to help them break through their limits, it would be futile and a waste of resources. After all, even if one broke through the current bottleneck with the help of external forces and went to the next stage, one would still be stuck at a standstill. The innate shackles were always there. If one couldn't pass it once, he wouldn't be able to pass it again. In such a dangerous situation, there was no chance to look for personal opportunities. If one couldn't pass it, there would naturally be others to take over. Whoever could do it would take over. Student from the Hidden Dragon High Martial School. 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 Phoenix City. Qin Fangyang was holding a beautiful little girl in his arms as he strolled around the campus with a warm smile on his face. When the students and teachers saw him, they stopped in their tracks and bowed. Hello, Principal Qin. Hello, hello. The little girl was still struggling, so he put her down on the ground. Then, she took off on her two short legs and ran quickly on the ground. Although this little girl was only 4 years old, she was very adorable and had already begun to show signs of becoming a stunning beauty. She was the youngest daughter of Hu Riyun and Li Changjiang, Li Qingwei. However, what even Hu Riyun and Li Changjiang didn't know was, this little girl was He Yuan Yue's reincarnation. As the only person who knew about this matter, Qin Fangyang was all smiles as he looked at the little girl. She was running happily under the sun. When she saw a stray cat, she would tiptoe over clumsily to catch it. The cat ran away, and the little girl would yell and chase after it. How nice! Qin Fangyang was all smiles as he watched Li Qingwei play happily. However, there was a trace of loneliness in the depths of his eyes. In his spatial ring, there was an extremely exquisite jade bottle. What the jade bottle contained was precisely a delicate and beautiful permetha flower. This red spider lily had fallen into Qin Fangyang's hands for 5 years. The light from behind him shone on Li Qingyue's body. She was playing happily under the sun. This was her childhood. It was a carefree period without any worries, responsibilities, or pressure. The time that belonged to her was to play and to be happy. Qin Fangyang stood in the shadows and looked at Li Qingyue under the sun. A smile appeared on his face. It's too late. Too slow. It's too fast. Qin Fangyang's handsome face was in the shadows. When the light fell on his face, it was exceptionally mottled and full of light and shadow. I really want to be with you as you grow up. It's a pity that I don't have time. Deep longing and regret flashed across Qin Fangyang's face. Uncle Qin, come quickly. Li Qingwei called out. Her voice was exceptionally crisp. I'm coming, I'm coming. Qin Fangyang chuckled and quickly walked forward. That night, at Li Changjiang's table, 3 rounds of wine were served. Qin Fangyang took out a piece of paper and placed it on the table. Changjiang, congratulations. From today onwards, you're the principal of Phoenix City's second high school. This, what does this mean? Li Changjiang was dumbfounded and didn't know what to do. Last night, the minister sent me a message. Qin Fangyang smiled faintly and said, "The final battle is about to begin. I need to rush to the front line. From now on, the second high school of Phoenix City will be entrusted to you." Li Changjiang and Hu Ruiyun were stunned when they heard this. The final battle is about to begin? Look after Qinghua. Qin Fangyang smiled and said, "We will win. We definitely will." Li Changjiang's eyes flashed with anxiety. He said, "But you've been looking for the reincarnation of the old principal. You haven't found it yet." Just like that, Qin Fangyang smiled bitterly. "This is all fate. Let's not look for it. We'll talk about it after the battle. Alas, even if we find it now, what can we do? It's just adding to our troubles. If I'm still alive after the battle." Qin Fangyang forced out an amiable smile. Suddenly, a wave of sadness surged from the bottom of his heart. He paused and tried to restrain himself. He said quietly, "If I'm still alive after the battle, we'll talk about it. If I'm dead, then don't mention it. Changjiang, you don't have to say anything. Tonight, accompany me until we're drunk." After saying this, Qin Fangyang raised his wine cup and drank it in one gulp. In the blink of an eye, it was already past midnight. Li Changjiang, who couldn't hold his liquor, was already drunk and unconscious. Qin Fangyang quietly stood up. All the luggage was already prepared and placed in the space ring. Everything that needed to be arranged had already been arranged. In the past few years, he was only the headmaster in name. Everything was still managed by Li Changjiang, who was in charge of the school's operations. Qin Fangyang was like a guardian deity in the school. If he left now, it wouldn't affect the school's operations at all, and there wouldn't be any chaos either. Just as he opened the door, a voice suddenly sounded. "You're leaving now?" It was Hu Ruiyun who spoke. Qin Fangyang didn't turn around. He said, "Yes. I have something to ask you," Hu Ruiyun said softly. "Qin, you are you the reincarnation of the old principal?" Qin Fangyang smiled faintly and said firmly, "No." The two of them were speechless for a long time. After a long while, Hu Ruiyun handed over a spatial ring. "Everything in here is Phoenix City specialties, tea leaves, snacks, and second high school emblem. There's yours, as well as little duos and chunglongs. Each item has its own name, and you can hand it over according to the person's name. Teacher Qin, please take care of yourself." Qin Fangyang reached out and took the ring. He laughed. "If I don't die, I'll definitely come back and be the principal again." Before he finished speaking, he pushed the door open and was already high up in the sky in a flash. Hu Ruiyun quickly chased after him. In the sky, there was a full moon, and its clear light shone over the entire world. Qin Fangyang stood solemnly in the sky, bathing in the clear light. "Take care." Hu Ruiyun waved her hand. In the sky, Qin Fangyang's face was facing Hu Ruiyun from the side. Only a calm smile could be seen, full of peace and indifference. He waved his hand, and his body soared into the sky like a gust of wind. It was as if he had rushed to the moon. Under the clear light of the full moon, Qin Fangyang turned into a gust of wind and rushed away. The moonlight shone on him like water. Wherever he went, the moonlight shone. Hu Ruiyun looked at the bright moon in the sky in a daze. The clear light shone over the mountains and rivers for thousands of miles. Wherever the wind passed, it flowed over the mountains a few times. She suddenly remembered the poem that the old principal wrote back then. "A man's ambition in life is to fight in a mighty city, shouldering the responsibility of the country, more than love. After parting today, I'm not drifting to the ends of the world. My heart is like the bright moon, shining on you every night." Qin Fangyang rushed all the way under the moonlight. Suddenly, he reached the peak of Phoenix, turning around, and suddenly appeared. He turned around and took a deep look at the lights of Phoenix City behind him. In his heart, there was an endless reluctance. He raised his head and looked at the full moon in the sky. "My heart is like the bright moon, shining on you every night." "Qian, I miss you so much. Qin Fangyang murmured softly. He reached out and took out the red spider lily from his chest. He looked at it for a long time. Finally, he sighed. Then, he circulated his energy. With a crisp bang, the jade bottle that was as hard as black gold shattered. Along with the red spider lily in the bottle, it turned into powder that filled the sky and scattered all over Phoenix, turning around. This battle, there's no chance of survival. Our love is deep but shallow. There's nothing I can do. Qian, I'm leaving. Under the moonlight, Qin Fangyang did not even look back. With a low roar, he tore through space and disappeared in a flash. Out in the distant space, Duo Bao pointed his sword at Buddha Ronding's throat from afar and said calmly, Buddha of the past, have you regretted what happened back then? Randang said calmly, the past is the past. The past is over. What's there to regret? In that case, what if I use your corpse to pay the karma of the disciples of Jie School? Since I lost, everything is naturally feasible. There is a hint of loneliness in Ronding's expression as well as worry. The death of a corpse meant that he would never have any hope of becoming a saint in his life. However, it was a fact that he had lost to Duo Bao. He could only admit it if he did not want to. Beside him, Yin Xiao, Gui Ling, Wu Dang, Wu Yun, and the others looked happy. Today, they could finally seek justice and come to an end. Back then, Randang was in Chan School, and his heart was in the West. Among the disciples of Chan School who had entered the West, Randang was the most loyal. Because of that, he became the Buddha of the past among the three Buddhas. Countless disciples of Jie School died tragically in Ronding's hands. Now, he had finally settled the karma. Yin Xiao was happy when she saw Randang leave. However, she was still indignant. Why didn't you just kill him? With his cultivation level, it's not worth it to only kill one of his good corpses. Not to mention that he won't vent his anger smoothly enough. He will most likely still cause trouble in this calamity. Duo Bao handed the 24 sea calming divine pearls and the treasureful money to Yun Xiao and said, keep these. Then he explained, to us, killing one of his good corpses is already the limit. He is ultimately the past Buddha of the Western sect. If he goes overboard, it will only cause the backlash of the Western sect. However, if we don't kill him, there are still too many people who will not let him off. There is really a lot of karma that Randang has over the years. It's better for others to do it. As soon as the Great Tribulation begins, I'll kill one of the three Buddhas of the Western sect. I'm really worried that I'll bring unexpected variables to master. This time, the heavenly tribulation will sweep through the various races of the heavenly circuit. I'm more willing to have fewer variables. I don't want to trigger extreme events in the early stages of the heavenly tribulation. Duo Bao sighed. He was also one of the three Buddhas of the Western sect. As a former Buddha, he was almost the existence closest to a saint. Only an existence of such a level could clearly understand how difficult it was to cleanse the sins of Jie School after everything was straightened out. It was precisely because he understood that he was really unwilling to cause any more karma for the Grandmaster of Heaven and Jie School. As the eldest senior brother of the Jie School, he had to restrain himself even if he had to end the karma of the past. Apart from having a target, he had to remember to stop. Once he formed a death feud, he would form a death feud with Jie School. Under the heavenly tribulation, he would not rest until he died. To be honest, I want to leave this world with Master, junior brothers, and junior sisters after resolving the karma of the past. We won't cause any more trouble. Think about it. The Punglai Immortal Island, the Golden Ao Island, and the Cloud Immortal Island. The three islands would gather and carry the entire Jie School to transcend this world and travel the galaxy. How satisfying would that be? Duo Bao sighed and said, after so many years, I've been scheming and scheming. It's really too tiring. He looked at the boundless starry sky and sighed. Senior brother has been tired all these years. Yin Xiao. The disciples of the Jie School were all silent. Tears could be seen in their eyes. Yes, it's really too tiring. Yin Xiao held the sea calming pearl in her hand lovingly. She did not care about the treasure fall coin that was also a peerless treasure. She lowered her head and said softly, The next time I see Xiao Duo, I'll give him the Treasure Fall coin and the 24C calming pearls. He should be able to use these treasures. She really did not care about those treasures at all. She did not take them seriously at all. She only felt sad. Not bad. It's a good idea to give it to junior brother Xiao Duo. Duo Bao smiled warmly and said, "It seems that junior sister Yin Xiao has a good impression of this kid." Yin Xiao smiled. "It's not just good. Let's not talk about him saving me from the Qilin Cliff. Let's just talk about how he tried his best to stop me from killing Luya when I went to the Demon Emperor Palace to take revenge. He avoided a huge karma." This. Duo Bao took a deep breath and supported his forehead with one hand. He smiled bitterly. "You actually went to the Demon Emperor Palace alone. Moreover, you challenged Luya in front of the Demon Emperor. Why didn't you wait? Let's go together. We could take care of each other. It's so risky for you to go alone. Even if the Demon Emperor is unwilling to lower himself and suppress the weak, with just an order from Luya, the demons will attack together. How many lives do you have to return?" Duo Bao reprimanded. Yin Xiao smiled foolishly. "At that time, I was blinded by hatred. I really didn't think too much. After meeting Master in the Green Touring Palace, I felt that karma had been settled. The anger that I had suppressed for so many years suddenly surged. I could no longer suppress it. I was so hot-headed that I rushed over. Under the calamity, there will always be dust that will disturb your heart. In the future, you have to think more. You can't be so rash." Duo Bao lectured. "Now the demons are involved. Our GS school only wants to settle the karma in this calamity. We also have the means to deal with the end of the heavenly tribulation. There's no need to participate too deeply in the heavenly tribulation. However, if we kill the 10th prince, Luya, I'm afraid we will really fall into it." Yin Xiao lowered her head and listened. "Let's go. In the next round, let's find Guang Qingzi to settle the score and settle the karma." "All right. After finding Guang Qingzi, we'll look for Zhu Lu-san. He's even more hateful than Guang Qingzi. As for C.I. Heng, Wen Shu, and Pu Xian, forget it. However, we have to let them release their enslaved junior brothers." Yes, the disciples of Jie School turned into the wind and left. On the other side, the heavenly lord of primordial beginning, who was riding the 9 dragons Agarwood chariot, arrived at the Green Touring Palace. "I want to leave. Are you willing to go with me?" The Grand Master of Heaven frowned and said, "I still need to settle the karma. I need to delay it for a while." "What karma? Can you not roll your eyes?" "You worry too much. We're all like you. Apart from beating up our brothers, we're sleeping. Really, we don't have to worry about anything. That's because boss hit you. What does it have to do with me?" The Grand Master of Heaven snorted and said, "Before boss left, he left a note for me to settle the score with you. How can there be no reason?" As he spoke, he proudly took out the note. However, the moment he unfolded it, he felt as if he had been struck by lightning. The primordial beginning sneered at the side. What did boss leave behind? The Grand Master of Heaven's hands trembled. Suddenly, he roared and shattered the note. He shouted sternly, "Old man, don't let me see you again. I want to fight you to the death. I won't rest until I die." He was so angry that he had gone mad. He had been a saint for tens of millions of years, but he was actually defeated by a blank note. Yes, it was a blank note. There was not a single word on it. The words "go" and "find second brother for what happened back then" had disappeared at some point in time. The primordial beginning sneered. "I told you that you have no proof." The Grand Master of Heaven was fuming. After so many years, everything had changed. Only the situation of him being the only one who was at a disadvantage had not changed. "You're leaving now. Aren't you going to bring your disciples and grand disciples with you? There are only a few that can be taken away due to the entanglement of grudges. However, you have to take some away. Otherwise, how can your Tao teachings continue? Of course, I have to take them away. But what about your Jia sect? Duo Bao wants to connect the 3 islands as one and use it as a vehicle to travel the galaxy in the future. That's thoughtful. However, the karma you mentioned, is it related to the 3 ancient clans?" "That's right. Yes, the karma between the Chan sect and Jie sect is nothing more than emotions. After so many years of training, what's there to be unhappy about? The Phoenix clan seems to be scheming against that girl. During this period of time, the Jie sect has received a lot of help from Xiao Duo. The karma is endless. I have to see what the Phoenix clan is up to. Will you take action at the critical moment? You're wrong. It might not be the critical moment. I can take action anytime and anywhere. It's up to you. The primordial beginning did not say anything more. He turned and left. The moment he floated onto the 9 dragons Agarwood carriage, he finally stopped. After a long time, he sighed. The Grand Master of Heaven. Yes, once we leave this world, we might not see each other again in the vast starry sky for eternity. Take care of yourself. If you encounter any problems, think about it more. Consult with Duo Bao and the others. Don't be stubborn. Yes, I'll follow Second Brother's instructions. The Jie sect claims to teach everyone without discrimination. You've done a good job. However, you've not done enough to teach. Karma of the heavenly Tao, karma and karma. You're on your own. Yes. The primordial beginning nodded and did not say anything else. Suddenly, a gourd floated out of the 9 dragons Agarwood carriage that was slowly leaving the ground. It was a gourd that was covered in purple light and looked extremely noble. I have a karma bond with that kid, but it's only limited to this gourd. You can pass it to him on my behalf. Back then, I was excited when I saw the gourd and obtained it. However, I owed the gourd vine karma. Today, the karma is clear. We have nothing to do with this world anymore. Tong Tian had just received the gourd when the 9 dragons Agarwood carriage disappeared into the vast starry sky. Tong Tian held the gourd in his hand and stood at the entrance of the green touring palace. He looked lost. He knew that his second senior brother was only here to bid farewell. After parting today, they would never meet again. However, in his heart, he was happy for himself and for the Jade Pure and Grand Pure ones. Because today, he had truly broken free from the shackles of the heavenly Tao. From now on, he could fly freely in the sky and swim freely in the sea. Second brother, take care. Tong Tian said softly. In the future, we'll definitely meet again. Don't forget that you haven't paid me back what you owe me. The 3 of us are bound together. We won't rest until we die. In the starry sky, the primordial beginning, who was about to reach Mount Kunlun, smiled mysteriously. Silly, you keep repeating the same sentence. Do you think I don't understand? In front of the cave of the Jade Void, Si Heng, Wen Shu, and Samantha Padra wore their usual Taoist attire. They looked otherworldly and otherworldly. The 9 dragons Agarwood carriage stopped. However, the primordial beginning did not come down. He looked at his 3 disciples through the curtain without saying a word. The 3 of them knelt on the ground. Greetings, Master. The primordial beginning still did not say a word. The 3 of them knelt and kowtowed 9 times, causing the ground to make thumping sounds. From the beginning to the end, the primordial beginning, who was on the Agarwood carriage, did not say a word. The curtain fluttered slightly. Today I bid farewell to you, Master. The 3 of them cried. In the future, the galaxy will be ethereal and the heavens will look at each other. I'm unfilial if I can't serve you. Master. There was still silence in the Agarwood carriage. Master. The 3 of them knelt for a long time. After a long time, the primordial beginning finally spoke. Go. Be good in the future. Yes, Master. Thank you, Master. Leave Ju Lu Sun and Randang behind. Yes. The 3 of them knelt on the ground and mustered their courage. Master, I want to see you again. Please fulfill my wish, Master. The primordial beginning said leisurely. So what if you see me? So what if I don't see you? After a moment of silence, he said, Go, go, go. The 3 of them looked sorrowful. However, seeing that the curtain of the Agarwood carriage had no intention of fluttering, they knew that their master had made up his mind. They could only kowtow a few more times before standing up. Disciple will take his leave. From now on, morning and evening, I will always wish Master good fortune and peace. The 3 of them looked back 3 times with every step they took. After a long time, they finally left the Jade Void Palace. The moment the three of them were about to disappear, the primordial beginning appeared in the void and looked at the three figures that had already turned into three small black dots. His gaze was exceptionally distant. In the distance, C.I. Hang and the other two's bodies suddenly trembled. They stopped abruptly on the cloud and knelt down. "Master!" They hurriedly looked up. They saw clouds rising in front of them. The entire Kunlun mountain had disappeared. The three of them could not help but feel sorrowful as tears fell from their hearts. The ancient Buddha Danzhao walked towards the west miserably. Halfway, he met Zhu Lusun, who rushed over to save him. When the two of them met, all sorts of feelings welled up in their hearts. They sighed endlessly and headed towards the west earth together. Suddenly, a ball of auspicious clouds in front of them surged. A white-robed Taoist walked slowly from the auspicious clouds. The rest lined up beside him. They were all the immortals of Chan school. The white-robed Taoist in the lead slowly opened his eyes and looked at the two of them. He said calmly, "Buddhas, how have you been?" When the two of them heard that, their expressions changed drastically. Ever since they betrayed Chan school, the existence in front of them had been their lifelong nightmare. It had never changed. Ever since the day they left, the primordial beginning saint of the Jade Clear lineage had never seen the two of them again. After so many years, although he did not say it on the surface, as time passed, the huge rock in his heart became more and more loose. He subconsciously thought that the primordial beginning was magnanimous and had probably let go of this matter long ago. After all, a saint could not be bothered with such small matters. It was understandable that he never expected that he would encounter the heavenly tribulation of the clear sky here. Moreover, the first sentence he said was such a heart-wrenching sentence. "Buddhas, how have you been?" In Ronding's ears, those words automatically evolved into another meaning. "Are you happy stealing from me?" Randang cupped his hands and bowed. "Greetings, senior brother." Primordial beginning slowly shook his head. "I can't accept it." Ronding's expression turned bitter. Zhu Lusun slowly knelt down. "Master." Primordial beginning slowly shook his head. "I can't accept it. I can't accept it." Zhu Lusun knelt and did not get up. Primordial beginning said softly, "The calamity has arisen. I should abandon this chaotic world and leave. I will not return this time. Before I leave, I have a lingering concern in my heart. I can't escape it. I specially came to end the karma with you. I hope that we will no longer have any disturbances. That's all. That's 666. Chapter 1401. Randang sighed. He should have thought of it. The heavenly tribulation this time was a tribulation for all living beings. However, it was a relief for saints. Saints were with the heavenly Tao. While they were indestructible, they were also restricted by the heavenly Tao. There were naturally many things that could not be done according to their wishes. Now that the heavenly Tao was in chaos, the heavenly tribulation was clearly a special existence that exceeded the ordinary tribulation. To saints, this might be the only chance to escape the restraints of this world. From then on, he would be unrestrained and free. Therefore, not long after the Grand Pure One returned, especially when he sensed that the human race was still protected by someone with great luck, he immediately transcended with his disciples without any reluctance. That was because this opportunity was the only opportunity since the creation of the world and the saints regarding the destiny of the various sects. Now, primordial beginning was about to leave. However, it was understandable that the primeval Lord of Heaven wanted to get rid of the last bit of karma before he left. However, it was a completely different matter when the person involved in the karma was involved in it. Although primordial beginning spoke tactfully and was not angry at all, the two of them knew very well that the karma between the two of them and the primordial beginning saint was huge. Fellow Taoist, the past is over. Why pursue it? Fellow Taoist, you have already made up your mind. There's no need to continue fighting. If you don't obtain more karma, it won't be beautiful, Randang said in a low voice. It had to be said that although it was an eloquent argument, it was possible for him to stop from the perspective of the past of primordial beginning. If I still want to stay in this world, I should not leave such karma. Primordial beginning said calmly. However, I've said previously that we won't meet again after leaving this time. If I don't settle the matter back then, it's inevitable that time will pass. How can my thoughts be clear? Primordial Beginning smiled. In that case, I have to ask the two Buddhas to fulfill my wish. Randang said dejectedly, "What do you want?" Primordial Beginning cupped his hands. The journey to the galaxy is long. I still lack a bright lamp to look after the path ahead. Ronding's expression was tragic. However, he extended his hand, and a flame suddenly appeared in his palm. Upon closer inspection, it was a small lamp. The flame flickered weakly, but under the blow of the 9 heavens' astral wind, it remained motionless. It seemed to be eternal. How is it? Thank you, Buddha. We will not meet again in the future. Goodbye. Randang left hatefully. Losing half of his natal divine lamp was equivalent to losing 80% of his cultivation base. Without billions of years of hard work, he would not be able to regain it. Primeval Beginning's move was equivalent to breaking his bones. Yuan Fu looked at Zhu Lusun Buddha again. Guang Qingzi, who was behind him, could not help but take a step forward. Master. Yuan waved his hand to stop him from pleading. He stretched out his hand and grabbed a white light from Zhu Lusun Buddha's body. He said, "I'll take one of your 3 flowers and a piece of auspicious cloud to end the karma of the past. Is that okay?" Zhu Lusun knelt on the ground and cried out in grief, "Master!" But there was no reply. When he looked up, all he could see was emptiness. Taoist Thunder and the others felt as if they had been abandoned again. Half a year ago, their ancestors had instructed them to gather the geniuses of Taoism. Furthermore, the more, the better. Taoist Thunder was overjoyed. He spared no effort in searching the entire Tao League continent, gathering 9,990,000 people. When I woke up this morning, I realized that it was gone. Everything was gone. All of the cave dwellings in the Divine Mountains had vanished. Even the auspicious clouds in the sky above the Tao Alliance were showing signs of crumbling. Only a few of them remained, drifting about feebly in the air. Where are they? Taoist Thunder rushed to the 3 pure halls like a madman. Where did they go? He saw that his other brothers were all standing there in a daze. Facing his question, there was only dead silence in their eyes. Where are they? They're all gone. They've all been taken away. Then what should we do? A letter shone with golden light on the table. Taoist Thunder's body trembled. For a moment, he did not dare to open the letter. He only felt desolate and disheartened. This was a farewell letter left by perfected Yuding. The content of the letter was unexpected, but it also seemed to be within his expectations. The content of the letter was relatively simple. We're leaving this world's cleansing heavenly tribulation. We're not going to get involved anymore. We're going to find a new place to settle down. This is no longer our paradise. We don't want to fight to the end and be expelled when we lose more than half of our strength. We want to leave with our heads held high and work hard on our own. We've taken the geniuses away, hoping to sow the light of the righteous path in a new place. Although we've left, the ideals and brilliance of Taoism won't die with us. Our orthodoxy won't disappear either. We're not abandoning you. The rest of you only need to surrender to the Astral Souls continent. Then, you'll be Astral Souls humans. The people of the Tao League are the descendants of the people under the rule of the ancient 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors. We're all the same. There's no difference between races. The only difference is the orthodoxy. Now, the last shackle that's holding you back is gone. Return to the Astral Souls human race. You'll become the clear stream of the human race in the Astral Souls. I hope you can live safely and happily, inherit the orthodoxy, and so on and so forth. At the end, there was an apologetic farewell, as well as a large pile of high-grade cultivation resources and pills. However, in Taoist Thunder's eyes, all of this was meaningless. After reading the letter, his heart had already turned to ashes. Previously, many ancestors of the Tao League reappeared in the mortal world and instantly took back the old site of the Tao League continent. Everyone in the Tao League was overjoyed, thinking that they could rise again and dominate the ancestral land. Now, everything had changed. How could it be like this? Now that the various races were at war, disputes had already been established. How could he and his brothers handle it with their strength alone? Even if only one demon god from the demon race attacked, it would be enough to crush the current high-end combat power of the Tao League. In such a cruel heavenly tribulation, only experts, powerhouses, pillars of support, and high-level combat power that could enter the battlefield now could maintain the situation. What was the use of large amounts of cultivation resources and pills? Could these allow him to improve to the point where he could fight against a demon emperor within a day? If they could, Taoist Thunder would be more than willing to swallow all these resources in one go, even if it meant he would die from overeating. However, this was obviously unrealistic. We stayed here alone and fought for tens of millions of years. After waiting for so long, you finally came back. Then, after you came back, this place became the most extreme battlefield. After a round of crazy battles, the entire continent was devastated. The original population of 100 billion fell to 10 billion. Then you guys just patted your butts and left, taking so many cultivation seeds with you. Taoist Thunder and the other four felt like crying, dejected, and disheartened. But overnight, we actually returned to the point where we had no one to rely on, that we were even worse than Zhuchanglu. From the beginning to the end, he didn't have anyone to rely on. What kind of backing was he? He just clenched his teeth and fought, but he still managed to create the most peaceful and prosperous era among the various races. Regardless of whether it was just for show or not, at least the Astral Souls humans were really peaceful. No one came to invade them. But what about us? We were always their leaders. We were one level higher than them. We thought we were more than one level higher than them. For so many years, we were like that. But now, especially in recent years, how come we suddenly couldn't defeat them? Then, the gap between us grew bigger and bigger. We couldn't even catch up to them anymore. We waited so long for our ancestors to come back. We could finally show off our strength again, but they left again. And they want us to surrender to them and become Astral Souls humans? Become a clear stream of the Astral Souls humans? What the hell? Feng, Lei, Shuang, Yu, and Shui stood dumbfounded in the main hall, their hearts filled with confusion. Now, at this very moment, they were especially envious of Taoist Hua and Taoist Yun, who died in battle. Although they had died in battle, they had died valiantly and cleanly. They had died without any worries. No, they would be engraved in the hearts of everyone in the Tao League. Even those who were taken away by them would feel the same. On the other hand, they who were still alive had to face this mess. What should we do? Taoist Snow's face was the same color as his name. What should we do? This was also the same word that echoed in the minds of the other four. Could the Tao League hold on? If the ancestors didn't leave, there would be no doubt that they could hold on. No matter what, they could still struggle at death's door. But now they were gone. They were all gone. Outside, there were armies of demons, and Azuras. Yes, there were also armies in the Tao League. Fight. They couldn't win. How could they win? Big brother, what should we do? Now, what should we do? Taoist Rain was uneasy, clearly at a loss. As an early-stage grand heavenly realm cultivator, even his voice was a little shaky now. Even his legs were starting to show signs of not being able to stand straight. How could he not panic when his heart was empty? Taoist Thunder drifted out of the hall. Many of the Tao Alliance cultivators below were looking up at him expectantly, hoping that he would give them an explanation. After all, they had all sensed the sudden disappearance of so many divine mountains and immortal abodes. At the foot of the mountain, there were even more people. It was a sea of people that he could see that there was hope and anticipation on everyone's faces. Fight, win, and live. Taoist Thunder's eyes suddenly moistened. I'll go find old Zhua and discuss the mainland alliance. Taoist Thunder suddenly felt strength in his body again. He said softly, now, the two mainlands must merge. The Tao League has been the dominant force for so many years. Suddenly, they want to merge. I'm worried that some people can't change their minds. Taoist Rain sighed. He naturally knew that the alliance and merger that Taoist Thunder mentioned was only a pretense. The real meaning was to surrender and seek refuge. Those who can't change their minds will only be beaten up by society. There's still hope for survival if they survive, but those who can't, Taoist Thunder said lightly, if they can't change their minds, then so be it. The way out has been given to them. If they can't grasp it, it's no one's fault. Zhuo Changlu was extremely surprised by Taoist Thunder's visit. His eyeballs almost fell out. Chapter 1402. Zhuo Changlu had only heard that his old friend was in the midst of a fierce battle at the front lines. Why did he come here? After all, both sides were bound to be enemies in the future. Moreover, the other side had ancient mighty figures like the primeval sage, Guang Chengzi, and Shi Jingzi to rely on. It could be said that they were the most likely force to stand at the end of this war. Zhuo Changlu was even a little envious at first. Based on the above knowledge, Zhuo Changlu even wondered if the other party was here to take him in. Zhuo Xiaoduo had a lot of contacts with the Prime of Tongtian and many higher-ups of the Jie Order. The primeval sage had also consulted him. Although the Tao League was based on the inheritance of Taoism, most of its disciples belonged to the human clan. It was the closest force to the human clan of the astral souls among all the races in the world, and even had the same origin. If the Tao League wanted to take in the human clan of the astral souls, it would not be too far-fetched and unbelievable. At the beginning of the war between the three races, the human clan of the astral souls was almost a vassal of the Tao League. If it were not for the strong rise of Zhuo Changlu and Yu Xingqian, the human clan of the astral souls would have become a vassal of the Tao League, where the three races would have been conquered by the Wu people. However, after hearing the reason, Zhuo Changlu could not help but be stunned, because he acutely sensed that Taoist Lei's intention was the opposite of his prediction. He was not here to take in the surrender, but to surrender. Was this world a little too crazy? The human world was not worth it. You were abandoned again? Zhuo Changlu felt that his worldview had been challenged. What do you mean again? What do you mean again? Taoist Lei was already depressed to the point of death. Now, he felt that he had been further attacked. He said sullenly, "We were abandoned for the first time." Ha! Zhuo Zhanglu chuckled and tactfully changed the topic. "I can't ask about this topic anymore. Hee, let's just let it go. Who asked me to be so kind? It couldn't be helped." The Zhuo family considered themselves to be kind people. Zhuo Xiaoduo was like that, and so was Zhuo Xiao's father. Given the current situation, it's not impossible for the two continents to merge. However, based on the current situation, even if the two continents merge, it might not be able to change anything. Zhuo Changlu's words were vague. However, Taoist Thunder could understand the meaning behind Zhuo Changlu's words. All the top masters of the Tao League have left. Even if you merge, what can you do? Let's not talk about other things. Just these 5 materials are the only high-quality resources that you can take out right now, that we don't want it anymore. Taoist Thunder felt bitterness in his mouth. However, he had to admit that this was the truth and the reality. This time, he suddenly realized that Yu Dongtian and Yin Zhonghu, who were originally one realm lower than him and didn't even enter his eyes, had not only caught up with him, but had even far surpassed him. Zhuo Changlu and Wu Yuding were so strong that he didn't even dare to think about it. He had to look up to them. His current cultivation base was indeed. What do you mean, Brother Zhuo? The past is still vivid in my mind. The Tao League did protect the astral souls of the human race for a long time in the past. The astral souls of the human race have been engraved in their hearts. However, friendship is friendship. The current situation must be considered first. What I mean is that the merging can't be carried out in the name of merging. The priority must be clear. So Changlu said, if the priority is not clear, there will be chaos in the future command. That kind of merging is better than not merging. Taoist Thunder nodded slowly. The reasons what Changlu gave was very good, but he didn't hide his ambition to directly annex the Tao League. You can come over, but everything after that has to be decided by me. You're only here to seek protection and dependence. You're definitely not collaborators. In other words, from this moment on, you have to accept unified leadership and jurisdiction. These words didn't need to be said out loud. His ambition was as clear as day. However, when he thought of the eager and expectant eyes of the billions of people in the Tao League, those innocent lives that Taoist Thunder's face seemed to have aged tens of thousands of years. Okay, he had clearly been mentally prepared before coming. However, when he really heard it and decided it himself, he still found it hard to accept. At this moment, Yun Zhonghu rushed in like a whirlwind. A war has broken out between the demons and the Wu people and the Western sect. The spirit race has also been involved. Zhujianglu was taken aback. How far is the battlefield from here? It's still very far from the astral souls, so it won't be affected. However, it's very close to the Tao League. The aftermath of the battle is not small. I'm afraid it will cause considerable losses. Are these people crazy? How dare they act so rashly? Aren't they afraid of angering the primeval saint and causing trouble for them? Immediately help the people of the Tao League to evacuate to the astral souls. Zhujianglu gave the order decisively. Now that the two continents had merged, the people of the Tao League were also the people of the astral souls. If there were too few people, the defense line would be too long. It would only become more and more difficult to defend. Although high-level experts could tear space and rush to the rescue, there were only a few people who could do so, and they were all scarce resources. What was the use of a few dozen experts who could tear space in such a huge defense line of thousands of kilometers? In particular, the construction of the Tao League's defense line on the mainland was so fucked up. Therefore, it was inevitable that the Tao League would give up on the mainland. Okay, Taoist Thunder, who understood the situation, did not waste time. He simply agreed, stood up, and hurried back to pass the order. Master, what's going on? Is the Tao League coming over? I thought he came over today to accept surrender. Yun Zhonghu said. It had to be said that Yun Zhonghu was indeed Zhujianglu's top disciple. The two of them had the same idea. Yes, it's just as you think. So those old ancestors came and left? Yun Zhonghu sneered. At the end of the day, it was us old natives who shouldered everything. Those ancestor experts have always been like this. Zhujianglu smiled faintly. If they really had the heart to fight to the death, they would have done it back then. Why would they wait until now? So what if the clear sky calamity starts? It can't stop them at all. Naturally, they would seek advantages and avoid disadvantages as soon as possible. Besides, if the saints wait until the clear sky calamity ends, they won't be able to leave. If that's the case, why come back? If they don't come back, how would they know that this is the only chance for freedom? You're right, Master. But you have to be careful during this period. What do you mean, Master? There are too many strong enemies. You are unstable. Have you forgotten Xiao Duo's repeated reminders? Xiao Duo had reminded Zhujianglu of this many times. The fact that Yun Zhonghu's life was in danger was still like a sharp knife hanging over his head. During this period of time, if you encounter any problems, remember to deal with them together with Yudong Tian. It's not necessarily a bad habit to seek advantages and avoid disadvantages. In this aspect, Dong Tian is much better than you. When it comes to shirking the responsibility, you have to be behind 3 times. Yes, I understand. It didn't take long. The ground shook a little. After 10 minutes, Yudong Tian rushed over. The big move is here. The Dragon, Phoenix, and Qilin races, the Azura race, and the Demon race are attacking the Astral Souls continent from 5 directions. The Ancestral Dragon is personally attacking and destroying the Heroic Soul Pass in the west. What? Everyone stood up in shock. Everyone was at White Mountain now, and the Heroic Soul Pass had the geographical advantage. After the Ancestral Land was reunited, the Heroic Soul Pass's sturdiness had increased exponentially. Unless one was a top-notch almighty in this world, it would be impossible to shake it. It had been stable during this period of time, and it had become a blind spot for the attack. Which side are they? Where's military advisor Li? Zhujianglu immediately summoned Li Chenglong. During this period of time, Li Chenglong was sent by Zhujianglu to command the Allied forces when he had nothing to do. Although the Astral Souls continent didn't suffer a large-scale attack. Li Qinglong secretly commanded the troops and did a lot of sneaky things. Moreover, Li Qinglong analyzed the situation of the entire 9 continents and made all the decisions under his comprehensive consideration. Every decision he made was extremely correct. This kind of big-picture view made the 4 marshals sigh at their inferiority. After all, everyone was originally in charge of their own affairs, and they could control the area under their jurisdiction accurately. However, if the area suddenly increased by a few hundred times, it was really beyond their power. Moreover, the 4 marshals' knowledge of high-end combat power was not as accurate as Li Qinglong's. Therefore, although this kid wasn't officially appointed, the actual position of military advisor of the Allied forces was already on his head. In the beginning, the marshals would slap him on the back of his head and laugh at him. However, as military advisor, Li's cultivation base increased. He could now suppress the marshals of the 4 marshals. Therefore, the 4 marshals were now well-behaved. They no longer called him Little Brat, but formally called him military advisor Li. Li Qinglong came in and squatted in front of the huge map that was more than 10 meters long like a monkey. He was deep in thought. The battle reports from all sides came in one after another. So Changlu, Qin Mo, Sword King, Yu Dongtian and his son, the 4 marshals of the 4 marshals, Xiaoduo, and the rest of the troops were all gathered in the hall. Every one of them looked anxious. The front line had already started fighting. Every minute, every second, people were dying. A large number of people were dying. How could they not be anxious? However, no matter how anxious they were, they had to wait until they finished analyzing the overall situation before they could take any concrete action. War was not a game that could be rushed into on a whim. Acting blindly would not help. If they saw a military advisor Li squatting in front of the map like this, they would have kicked him a few times. However, no one dared to do so today. Everyone looked very serious. Xiaoduo sat far away with his legs crossed. Young Master Zwen never worried about such things. He didn't even want to get involved. Just tell me what you want to do after you've discussed it. It's very obvious that this wave of attacks was premeditated. They want to eliminate the Star Soul human race first. Li Qinglong studied for a while. He squatted on the ground and didn't turn his head. He said in a heavy voice, "This is a battle of life and death. It's no secret that our main force is concentrated on Mount Whitehead. The enemy's attack this time was specifically designed to target our weakness. Dragon Clan, Qilin Clan, Phoenix Clan, Ashura Clan, Demon Clan. A total of 5 clans attacked us from 10 directions. They caught us off guard and attacked us from the front and back. We are overwhelmed. Now, some of the heroic soul passes have been lost. They are so decisive. Obviously, they want to destroy the astral souls in one battle. Then, they will talk about the rest of the clans. But I find it strange. Why did the Wu people, the Demon Clan, and the Western religious sect fight at this time? And it's a battle of life and death? Li Qinglong frowned. This is really puzzling. They just started fighting, and there is a fatal crisis here. What does it mean? Is there any other connection? Either all the clans are colluding, or the Wu people and the Demon Clan are being schemed against. What is it? Li Qinglong frowned. The enemies have shown up. We could just send troops. However, the 3 clans are the biggest uncertainty. Chapter 1403. What's the difference? Bei Gonghao was confused. Seeing that Li Qinglong was silent for a long time, he couldn't help but get impatient. Shut up. Dongfang Xingyang yelled at Bei Gonghao. If the Wu people and the demon race were just being set up, then this is the safest development for us, because we don't have to worry about new enemies. If the 3 races know the current situation of the battle, but choose to stand by and watch, or even deliberately create the illusion that they are busy fighting with their lives on the line, then we have to be wary of new enemies. The difference between the 2 races is like heaven and earth. I really wonder how you became the commander of the North Borderline. What do you know? After a while, Li Qinglong thoughtfully drew 10 directions, a big oval circle in each direction. He frowned and said, "Uncles, well, what do you think?" Zhuo Changlu was also an expert in the art of war. He immediately understood what Li Qinglong meant. The Flood Witch's relationship, the Wu people's relationship with Zhu Wu, the relationship with the demon race, the friendship with the Demon King and Demon Queen that extrapolate from the beginning to the end and estimate what was going on. Was it possible that they were also part of the trap? Zhuo Chonglu frowned and said, the Wu people probably wouldn't be part of this conspiracy. Whether it was the Flood Witch or the Zhu Wu, they wouldn't be so calculative. But it's hard to say for the demon race and the Western tribe. Zhuo Chonglu thought about the Demon King Jun and the Demon Queen, Shi's faces, and couldn't make up his mind. Were they part of the conspiracy? According to Zhuo Zhonglu's judgment, he was willing to believe in the Demon Emperor and the Demon Empress. However, in this situation where the life and death of a race was at stake, how could he be so sure that they weren't involved? Just because he was friends with them? Just because he felt that they wouldn't do such a thing? Even if Zhuo Chonglu was the one who made the judgment, he still couldn't get everyone's agreement. However, Zhuo Chonglu didn't think they were part of the conspiracy. The Demon Emperor Dong Wang, the 8 Great Zhu Wu, and the Flood did not seem like people who would scheme behind the scenes, especially since they had already signed a contract with the Demon Emperor. If they really had no other choice, they would arrange for some of their descendants to enter Zhuo Xiaodui's space in the Tower of Annihilation. Zhuo Chonglu pondered for a full 3 minutes before he said, 40 to 60. 40%, they participated. 60%, they didn't. Li Qinglong stared at the map and nodded slowly. Since the probability is more than 60%, then we'll just assume that they didn't participate. Now is not the time. We can only take a gamble. Li Qinglong spoke very decisively and resolutely. The decision was made in an instant, and we headed in that direction. The 4 great commanders and several almighty experts who knew how to fight were immediately full of praise. This kind of decisiveness was the most important factor of a commander. He dared to take a gamble. He stood up and pointed at the map. Look, these 6 routes are the Dragon, Phoenix, and Qilan army. They jump directly above the clouds. I reckon that their goal is to invade our land. Their intention is naturally to disintegrate us from the inside. If they take a step back, they can also form a pincer attack with the enemy outside. The ability of the Dragon, Phoenix, and Qilan army can be said to be a great weapon against the heroic Soul Pass. These 2 routes, one on the left and one on the right, are heading straight for Shangjing. There's no doubt about it. The 2 routes on the left should be taking the Dao League's border and going straight for our astral souls. They're coordinating with the 2 routes that are attacking Shangjing, and there are also reinforcements from behind. The 2 routes jump down from the sky, and the 2 routes fight steadily and surely to attract our attention to the greatest extent. This method of marching and planning is very unusual. It seems that these guys haven't been idle while we've been working hard. At least for now, the distribution of our main forces has almost been perfectly avoided by them using the current route of attack. And these 2 routes are coming in from the flanks. Their final landing point is still faintly discernible, and they're heading straight for Shangjing. It seems that the Dragon, Phoenix, and Qilan army are determined to bloom in the center of the astral souls. They're determined to destroy us. On the other hand, the Azura army's 2 routes disembarked from the inland sea. Along the way, the rivers of blood surged into the sky. It's exactly the devouring route of the Azura Blood Seas attack. It can maximize the benefits of their race's characteristics and maximize their combat power. As for the demon race's 2 routes, there's nothing to write home about. They're still attacking fiercely and advancing triumphantly. They're relying on the sharpness of their troops and their tyrannical strength. They're considered the side that's relatively easy to deal with. All in all, this strategy of ambushing from all sides has been set up. The strategic intention of blooming in the center is obvious. Li Qinglong stood in front of the map and said, if Shangjing, the center, is breached, our collapse will continue to spread from the center of the astral souls to the surrounding areas. Coupled with the tyrannical, destructive power of the 10 Directions army, we won't have the chance to turn the situation around. The current situation. Li Qinglong pointed to the south and said, the demon race's 2 routes are the furthest away from each other. It seems to be easier to deal with them. However, it's no longer the same as before. We have to consider the possibility of the demon ancestor attacking us. In the face of the demon ancestor's attack, only Uncle Zwa and Auntie Zwa are competent enough to resist him. The troops that can be sent to the two of you can choose any one of the four armies. Long Yuxing and Wan Lishio stood up without a word and followed Zwa Chonglu and his wife out. The battle was fierce and dangerous, so there was no time to be long-winded. As for Zwa Zhonglu and Wu Yuding, it was the same no matter which side they were on. Zwa Chonglu chose Bei Gonghao's northern army without any hesitation and immediately gave the order to set off. The formation of the army and so on were all omitted. The most important thing was to intercept the demon race's army as soon as possible and stop their momentum. Everything else was inconsequential. When Zwa Chonglu and his wife brought along high-level cultivators who had the ability to tear space and set off at full speed, Bei Gonghao's orders rang out like a string of cannons. Less than 100 breaths after Zwa Chonglu and his wife set off, the Northern Army's vanguard rushed out of the camp. Then the Second Army, the Third Army, and the Fourth Army. The command was strict, and the order was carried out in an orderly manner. In the tent, Li Qinglong pointed in the direction of the inland sea and said, "So the Azura army's overall strength seems to be the weakest among the invading armies. But the blood god of the Nether River Patriarch has the greatest impact on killing living beings. If we are late by one step, the battle will be out of control, and the consequences will be even more unimaginable. You sister-in-law, Gao Chaoer, and Zhun Piapiao should go together. The army that can be allocated to you is half of the Southern Army. I believe that sister-in-law's power of icebound heaven and earth can restrain the blood sea's devouring power. Yes, I understand. There's one more thing. I hope that you can annihilate the Azura army as soon as possible and then immediately return to Shanjing. Don't think that everything is fine just because you've taken care of the Azura army. The battle situation here in Shanjing is not optimistic. The two of you attacking the Azura army together is using the strong to suppress the weak. It's also the only advantage we have in the current battle situation. I understand. We will finish off the Azura army as soon as possible and rush to Shanjing's rescue." Zwa Xiaoduo said no more and went out with Zhuo Xiaoyan, Gao Xiao, and Zhun Piapiao to gather the troops. In less than 100 breaths, many high-level cultivators had gathered. With the three women in the lead, they tore through the void together with Zhu Yin and Xiao. On the other hand, Zwa Xiaoduo was gathering the remaining half of the army as the second wave. This was because he wanted to put this group of people into the Tower of Annihilation and fly there lightly. When the Tower of Annihilation was opened, everyone would recharge their energy before immediately coming out to kill the enemy. The benefits of this were not limited to just a little bit. Apart from allowing the Southern Army to recharge their energy and even have time to cultivate, the marching speed of the Southern Army was much faster than the Southern Army moving on their own. Just as Li Qinglong had said, the astral souls were besieged by the five forces and ambushed from all sides. Zwa Xiaoduo's side was the only side that had the advantage. They had to maximize the effect of his side. Only then would the astral souls have a chance of winning. Left and right heavenly kings, Senior Qin Sha swordsman, Yu Moyan, Diviner, Li Zhongming, Yu Yin Pai Yibao divide the troops into four groups. Lead the Western Army and the Eastern Army to fight the Dragon Army and the Phoenix Army. We must not lose Shanjing. As you command, Emperor, together with Lord Changtian. The remaining half of the Southern Army, Marshal Nan Zhengxian, Xiang Chong, Xiang Bing, Zhan Xuejuan, and me, to fight the Qilin. If the people from the Dao League return, they will guard the door from the Dao League to the astral souls. Everyone move out. Once the order was given, everyone responded and moved out immediately. Da Qin Fangyang rushed all the way. Just as he was about to turn in the direction of White Mountain, he suddenly heard an earth-shattering explosion. Boom! That was Da Qin Fangyang was surprised. He immediately turned around and soared high into the sky. He focused his energy on his eyes and looked over. He saw that in the far north, There was a faint, huge wave of air that shot into the sky. The place where the wave of air came from was too far away. Even though Qin Fangyang had reached the peak of the grand heavenly realm, he could not see it clearly. He could only rely on his divine sense and soul waves to identify it. Although he did not know what was going on, Qin Fangyang was very sure that something had happened. Even though it was so far away, he could still feel such a violent tremor. Did this not mean that something big had happened? Such a tremor, such a distance. With such a commotion, if it was a local city, the entire city would be finished. Under normal circumstances, there should not be such a tremor. Could it be that an enemy has invaded? Qin Fangyang pondered for a moment. He turned around decisively and sped in that direction. It was best if it was not a war there. Although it would delay his journey, he would still be at ease if he rushed over to take a look. He could still make it to the front line in time. If something had really happened, perhaps no one would have arrived earlier than him. His unexpected rescue could still recover some of the losses in the first moment. Chapter 1404. With that in mind, Qin Fangyang turned around and tore through space, speeding up his journey. Shangjing City. It was the first time the Astral Souls continent had a population of about 200 million. As the largest city in the Astral Souls continent, its defense had always been extremely strong, especially the protective shield of Shangjing City, which was personally reinforced by Zhuge Changlu and the others. It was extremely sturdy. Even when the demon race returned last time, with the might of the entire continent, the number of collapsed buildings in Shangjing City was the least in the entire world. Not only was there the royal family, but more importantly, almost all the high-ranking generals' families were gathered in Shangjing City. Firstly, it was safe. Secondly, it was easy to manage. Thirdly, there were many opportunities here. Fourthly, it was a way to reassure the higher-ups that although there were very few traitors in this kind of race war, there was always one in 10,000. For various reasons, Shangjing, the political center, naturally became the economic center, the financial center, the gathering center, and the residential center. Qin Fangyang tried his best and tore through space a few times. Although he had not reached his destination, he knew what was going on. Soldiers were rising from all directions. Their target was Shangjing. Shangjing was dangerous. Moreover, from the looks of it, the restrictions on the 4 directions of the heroic soul pass had been broken. Qin Fangyang did not hesitate and immediately turn around. As he got closer to Shangjing, the pressure Qin Fangyang felt became stronger and stronger. That was the enormous pressure of countless chaos grand heavenly immortals gathered together. It made Qin Fangyang feel as if the sky in front of him had completely collapsed. Qin Fangyang felt despair as he ran. He even felt as if he was stepping into the gates of hell. How many fucking experts are here? How many grand heavenly immortals are there? Others definitely can't make it at this time. Does this mean that I have to shoulder all of this myself? Then I'm rushing to my death by running forward step by step. Qin Fangyang was very sad, but he vaguely felt a little heroic. This did not mean that there were no experts in Shangjing City. Naturally, there were experts, but there was not a single grand heavenly immortal who was at the peak level. At this moment of life and death, how could a peak expert stay behind? Even a few experts of the royal family had already arrived at the front line. Therefore, Qin Fangyang was very clear that as long as he could pass through this battlefield, he would be the only peak expert. These words were very uplifting. But when he thought about how he would have to face tens of thousands of enemies alone, that no matter how brave Qin Fangyang was, he still felt his legs go soft. He wasn't worried that he wouldn't be able to block it, nor was he worried that he wouldn't be able to win, because he knew very well that it was simply impossible. However, he was worried that after he died in battle, what would happen to Shangjing if the minister and the others couldn't arrive in time? What about the billions of astral souls? Qin Fangyang felt the cold wind blowing on his face, his eyes filled with determination. His feet also became faster and faster. He clearly knows that he's courting death this time, but he's still running faster and faster. Qin Fangyang said self-deprecatingly, "I'm also a freaking talent. Is there any other way? To stall for time while delaying the enemy? He arrived in Shangjing in a flash. Qin Fangyang was dumbfounded. So it wasn't 4 enemies, but 6. He had miscalculated 2 paths. Fortunately, these 6 enemies had a common flaw. None of them had reached Shangjing, although they were only a few hundred miles away. But if they hadn't arrived, they hadn't arrived. In these 6 directions, there were no less than 30 heroic soul passes in each direction. Peak experts could bypass them, but it was impossible for a large group of people to do so. Therefore, they had to destroy those heroic soul passes first. Only then could the large group of people drive straight in. And the meteor shower and the astral souls for thousands of years had created a strange phenomenon. There was no one in the suburbs. All the humans were in the big cities. Therefore, there were almost no casualties among humans or ordinary residents. However, the 6 armies had arrived. Qin Fangyang directly let out a long roar and flew above the protective shield of Shangjing. He only felt a sense of heroism in his heart, a sense of excitement. He understood that 1,800,000 of his comrades had already perished and their Tao vanishing. Each Brave Soul Mountain Pass was guarded by 10,000 regular soldiers. However, these enemies had already marched straight into Shangjing. In other words, there were at least 180 soldiers inside the Brave Soul Mountain Pass in those 6 directions. That was to say, at least 1,800,000 iron-blooded warriors must have all died in battle. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to pass. 8 million heroic souls. Qin Fangyang looked up to the sky and roared, 8 million good men. Alarms were already sounding in Shangjing. Countless people were about to fly up. Qin Fangyang stood in the sky and shouted, "Speed up the reinforcement of the protective shield. The enemy is too strong. Use all means, no matter the cost. Reinforce the shield. Even at the cost of your life and soul. You're definitely not a match for this group of enemies. Use all means to reinforce the shield. This is the only way to stall for time. Delay for 1 more second is 1 more second. Wait for the minister to come back. I am Qin Fangyang. I am a vanguard official who has returned from the front line. I ask you to reinforce the shield with all your might. The minister is already on his way with the army. We only need to buy a few minutes. Do you hear me?" Qin Fangyang's roar shook the entire Shangjing. His voice was firm and determined. Countless martial artists below were instinctively convinced, because they heard the determination to die in the voice of the person above. As long as I, Qin Fangyang, am alive, no enemy can enter Shangjing. Think of a way to reinforce the shield first. Think of all means, no matter the cost. The order of the military was immediately passed down. All capable martial artists, reinforce the shield at all costs. Shangjing was too big. The shield of such a huge city was the strongest, but to reinforce it temporarily, it was also the most expensive. Martial artists below the God-reigning realm were not qualified to participate. If martial artists of the God-reigning and profound realm wanted to reinforce the shield, they would probably have to use their own life and soul as the price. Martial artists of the sky realm and above quickly gathered and flew in all directions of the city. The military was coordinating. The experts of the various ministries and commissions rushed to different posts under the leadership of their respective leaders. Shangjing, in Zhuxianyan's small courtyard. Before the accident happened, Wang Lingyun was lying on a recliner and drinking tea. Her body was covered in age spots. These few years, although Xiaoduo had given her good things to nourish her body at all costs. But Wang Lingyun also clearly knew that her life had come to an end. The startling sword was in the scabbard. The scabbard was on Wang Lingyun's lap. Since that day, the startling sword had never left the scabbard. There was no sound at all. It was as if this sword was already dead. When the crazy vibration came, the moment the house began to rustle and dust began to fall, Wang Lingyun looked at everything in shock. He felt as if something great had happened. His heart suddenly contracted. The atmosphere of the coming storm and the collapse of the sky and earth had already enveloped Shangjing, along with the alarm. When the alarm of the enemy attack continuously sounded in every corner of Shangjing, Wang Lingyu knew that this time, Shangjing had really encountered a life and death crisis. He gently stroked the hilt of the startling sword and muttered, "Grandfather, it seems that little Hong can't be saved. Little Hong, are you willing to accompany me and be the last bloom of our lives?" The startling sword seemed to have sensed something and suddenly let out a sword hum. In an instant, 3 inches out of the scabbard, cold light shot out in all directions. Suddenly, the small courtyard was filled with murderous intent. Everyone knew that the startling sword was the sword of the god of war back then. It was also the Wang family's heirloom and amulet. But only Zhuo Changlu, his wife, and Wang Lingyu knew. The real, startling sword. Why was it an amulet? There was a reason for that. It wasn't just because the startling sword had a sword spirit. That was because Wang Feihong had left behind the startling sword. It was similar to a soul imprint, the power of will. Wang Feihong had practiced the sword all his life and was sincere to the sword. He had devoted his life's energy, all his effort, and all his spirit to his sword Dao, his sword. Other than the sword, there was nothing else. That was why he could use the sword to reach the peak. When he advanced to the primordial chaos realm, the startling sword had a sword spirit. After a long period of battle, as his comprehension of the sword became deeper and deeper, his sword Dao will also became purer and purer. By the time he shocked the world in that battle, he was already a zenith heaven, and his sword Dao will had already accumulated a lot in the startling sword. Although he had died, he had sealed his will of the sword Dao within the startling sword after a desperate battle. He left the startling sword behind. This was also the reason why the startling sword was not damaged at all when Wang Feihong self-destructed. It could be said that this was the essence of Wang Feihong's life, although it didn't have any consciousness. However, it was still indestructible. However, this sword Dao could only be released once, and there was a huge price to pay. Zhuo Changlu wasn't willing to let the last trace of his brother disappear. Moreover, Wang Feihong's last relic was left for his grandson, Wang Lingyun. Therefore, Zhuo Changlu sent this sword back to the Wang family. He handed it to Wang Lingyun. Wang Lingyun's aptitude was not good and could not absorb this sword Dao will. After that, the Wang family didn't have any other outstanding figures, so Wang Lingyun didn't mention the secret again. After all, if the ancestor's sword Dao fell into the hands of an unfilial descendant, it would be the greatest insult to Wang Lingyun's grandfather. It would be the greatest discredit to the name of the god of war and the reputation of the hero. Until today, Wang Lingyun suddenly felt that perhaps today was the day. A powerful enemy is attacking. Shangjing is in danger. The Imperial Emperor is far away. He can't return in time, but my current energy is not enough to fully unleash the ancestors' sword Dao will. I only have one chance to attack. I can't waste it. Wang Lingyun muttered to the Jinghong sword, "My body is already weak. It's difficult for me to even walk normally, let alone kill the enemy. Little Hong, everything depends on you. Take me to kill the enemy, okay?" The Jinghong sword left its sheath and stood in the air. Cold light flashed. "I hope you can help me," Wang Lingyun pleaded. "After all, this is the last battle for you and me." Clang, clang, clang. The Jinghong sword let out 3 sonorous sword sounds. Wang Lingyun laughed. "Very good, very good." Then, he channeled his energy and used all his strength to absorb and devour without care. All the precious medicine left by Zhuo Xiaoduo, useful and useless, were swallowed into his stomach. Then his body slowly expanded. However, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was still rushing into his body crazily. With a boom, his dantian shattered, but the spiritual energy was still pouring in. This was a form of suicide. It wasn't even self-destruction. At a certain point, the entire body would disintegrate. There was no power to kill the enemy. He would treat his body as a rubber ball and blow it with all his might. In the end, the rubber ball would crack and leak, and it would be over. No one would do that. But now, Wang Lingyun did so. Following the intake of spiritual aura, his internal organs were already slowly being destroyed. His face had also changed shape. His entire body had become more than 10 times fatter. At the moment when he was at his fattest, Wang Feihong used the last of his strength to grab the Jinghong's sword and muttered, "Little Hong, let's go kill the enemy." The tip of the sword slowly pierced into his chest and into his heart. Wang Lingyun's body instantly stiffened. His eyes looked at the void with a smile. His eyes were actually filled with pride. My body is no longer able to go on the battlefield to kill the enemy, but my soul can. Under the baptism of the ancestors' will of Sword Dao, using my soul to control the sword, and using my bloodline to unleash the will of Sword Dao is more suitable and stronger than anyone else controlling the will of Sword Dao. Although I can only use it once. Although after using it once, I, Wang Lingyun, will no longer exist in this world. The Jinghong sword and the ancestors' will of Sword Dao will no longer exist in this world. But I, Wang Lingyun, have not been humiliated by my grandfather. I have not let down the name of the grandson of the war god. The whistling spiritual energy carried Wang Lingyun's blood and soul and rushed crazily into the Jinghong sword. The Jinghong sword was trembling slightly. The blood-colored light on the sword body became denser and denser. A white-clothed phantom slowly appeared above the sword body. His features were clear, and it was Wang Lingyun's appearance. The illusory figure became clearer and clearer. There was a smile on his face, and his face was handsome. Just like the war god who was dressed as white as snow, he had once again appeared in the world. The Jinghong sword's sword hummed incessantly. The killing intent became heavier and heavier. The sword energy moved horizontally and vertically. Clang, clang, clang. Chapter 1405. On the other side, the couples Wu Chonglu and Wu Yuding led Long Yuxing, Wan Lixiu, and thousands of other experts to block the path of the demon army. There were no arguments, no accusations, and no impassioned speeches. The moment the two sides met, they started to fight at close quarters. It was the most extreme battle. A fierce battle that could not be held back started instantly. It was out of control. The moment they came into contact, there were already waves of blood. Blood flowed like a river. This was a common saying, but it was so real at this moment. The Sky Patrol saber that Zhuo Chonglu had recast had turned into a 10,000-meter line of defense. With a slash of the saber, tens of thousands of demons were cut into two halves. Their smelly blood splattered on the ground like torrential rain. As for the agreement that a superior expert should not attack the weak, Zhuo Chonglu did not care at all. If he showed mercy now, it would only lead to the destruction of the demon army and the destruction of the human race. Instead of that, it was better for him to attack and kill as many demons as possible. At this moment, there was only murderous intent in his heart. So far, the devil race had successively broken through 4 cities on their way here, and those 4 cities had been reduced to infernal purgatory. There was not a single living person left. Now that he had cut the bodies of the demons, he could even see some living human bodies from the intestines that had spilled out. There were even complete babies that had not been digested in time. When Zhuo Zhonglu and the others saw this, they were filled with rage and indignation. Even though he had heard of the demon horde wreaking havoc on the Dao Alliance continent and feasting on the people of the Dao Alliance, those were merely rumors. Even if he had seen them, he had only caught a glimpse of them from afar. He had never seen them up close. Now that he had seen them up close, he could only feel heart-wrenching pain. They kept their mouths shut and gritted their teeth. They swung their swords, drew their sabers, and fought in silence. There was no need for any words, because there was no need. The only way to deal with this kind of evil beast was to kill it. He poured all of his true qi and yuan qi into the weapons in his hands. His fists, palms, fingers, and claws were all used to kill the demon horde as much as possible. Kill them all. kill them all. There were less than 8,000 experts gathered here, but they had built an insurmountable mountain, a millstone of flesh and blood. In the face of the raging demon army that covered the mountains and plains, they did not retreat a single step. They would not allow a single demon to break through their defensive line. He even killed the countless demons one by one, killing them with his blades, crushing their flesh with his fists, and crushing their bodies with his swords. Suddenly, a magnificent sword light flashed at an extreme speed. Long Yuxing flew up on his sword, and where the sword light passed, it was like a huge green dragon. The azure dragon was covered in dazzling sword light. It shook its head and wagged its tail. It was no less than 10,000 feet long. It charged straight into the devil race army, wreaking havoc back and forth. Everywhere it passed, there were mountains of corpses, seas of blood, and severed limbs. The hearts of the azure dragon's 7 stars, who were watching the battle from the sky, trembled at the same time. They only felt surging emotions, unable to control themselves. This attack was clearly the famous ultimate move of their eldest brother, the Azure Dragon Lord. Azure Dragon soars in the sky. Furthermore, the power displayed by this young human in front of them was even stronger than their eldest brother, the Azure Dragon Lord, when he was at his peak. Let's fight once. Moonfox of Heart's eyes were filled with tears. For the Azure Dragon Divine Sword, let's fight once. I want to fight with the Azure Dragon Divine Sword one more time. All right. The 7 of them flew down together. They took out all of their weapons and unleashed all of their ultimate moves, each of them showing off their best moves. In an instant, the body of the Azure Dragon that was swimming in the sky suddenly exploded with 7 lights, shining brightly. It was as if 7 stars were shining on the Azure Dragon's body. It caused the Azure Dragon's lethality to increase by more than 3 times. Yes, it had really increased by more than 3 times out of nowhere. This was because the current Azure Dragon soars in the sky was a complete and strengthened version. The Azure Dragon in the sky was accompanied by the 7 stars. The combination of the 7 stars was even better than the Azure Dragon Lord's Azure Dragon soars in the sky. Right now, the Azure Dragon soars in the sky was like a huge ship that would never sink. It charged left and right amidst the densely packed demon army, wreaking havoc as it wantonly moved back and forth majestically. The Azure Dragon descended, looking down on the world with disdain. Dragon roars resounded, suppressing the 4 extremes. As the Azure Dragon's 7 stars fought, they wholeheartedly felt this familiar atmosphere that they had not felt for a long time. Each of them was overwhelmed with emotions, and tears streamed down their faces. They forgot about everything else as they fought fiercely. They did their best to unleash their highest combat strength, coordinating with every move and transformation of the Azure Dragon Divine Sword. Their hearts were filled with hot blood, and they only wished for this moment to last forever. Heaven has 4 extremes. Azure Dragon suppresses the east. Eldest brother, we can fight together with the Azure Dragon Divine Sword again. Do you see? Do you miss us? Azure Dragon in the sky. 7 stars will accompany us forever. Fortune and misfortune together. Life and death together. Azure Dragon, 7 stars. Our hearts are eternal. We are the Azure Dragon, 7 stars. Eldest brother, we are here to fight with you. The 7 of them roared and fought, increasing Long Yuxing's endurance by a lot. It also allowed the Azure Dragon soars the sky to last for a long time. Everywhere it passed, the Devil Army's lives were reaped in large batches. When the battle reached its climax, it was also time for the Azure Dragon Divine Sword to perform the final move, Sovereign's Descent. The Azure Dragon's 7 stars roared again and actually revealed their huge bodies, causing the might of Sovereign's Descent to increase again. As far as the eye could see, the killing circle suddenly expanded by 10 times. Dense and disorderly screams sounded like a tsunami, rising and falling in an endless stream. Even Zhuo Changlu, and Wu Yuting were shocked by this unexpected scene. And right at this moment, a ray of light suddenly flashed in the distant void. Everywhere it passed, it was as if the blue sky had turned dark, no longer clear. An extremely fierce, murderous aura suddenly enveloped the battlefield. Even with Zhuge Changlu and Wu Yuting's current cultivation, they could not help but feel as if their hearts were suddenly grabbed by a cruel hand. That was the feeling of impending death. That was the God-slaying spear. The God-slaying spear had finally appeared on the battlefield. Indeed, the demon ancestor Rahu was the backbone of this attack. The God-slaying spear was as swift as ever, arriving in a flash. Its target was actually Long Yuxing, who was wreaking havoc in the devil army. The God-slaying spear's tip was aimed at the huge azure dragon that was still swaying freely. One spear to nail the dragon, one strike to kill. Long Yuxing instinctively felt a life and death crisis approaching. Not far away, Wan Lixiu roared and rushed over with all her might. But the God-slaying spear's momentum was too fast and too fierce. It was like a killing lightning that pierced through heaven and earth, descending into the sky in the blink of an eye. The so-called distance, space, and time were all in its eyes. Right at this moment, ha ha ha, a wild laugh sounded. Suddenly, from the distant sky, 7 dazzling starlight hung down. At the critical moment, before the God-slaying spear's rapid attack, they poured into the 7 stars of the azure dragon. The 7 stars of the azure dragon instantly absorbed the majestic starlight and bathed in it. The brilliant light actually resisted the God-slaying spear for a short period of time. Although the starlight was rapidly collapsing under the God-slaying spear's power, but in this short moment, it was able to hold on. But everyone understood. The God-slaying spear easily broke through the starlight. Once it broke through, it would be the arrival of death. The God-slaying spear circled and soared into the sky. From above, it charged again. This time it was even faster, even more ferocious. To have such a battle in this life. I have no regrets, even if I die. Big brother, you've already gone, and we've also accompanied the sacred sword on its journey. Now, we brothers are here to accompany you. Without the azure dragon, the 7 stars of the azure dragon are just lonely souls and wild ghosts. What joy is there in life? Big brother, little brother is here. Little sister is here. 7 streaks of starlight rose into the air and collided with the God-slaying spear's attack without any care. It was clearly 7 directions, but they converged into a streak of starlight in the air, as if they were flowing together with the constellations in the sky, and resolutely collided with the God-slaying spear. Seeing the convergence of the 7 stars, the end of the road, the extreme collision with the God-slaying spear was already unavoidable. With a dragon's roar, it forcibly pierced into it. Long Yuxing gritted his teeth and used all his strength to ride the sword. The azure dragon soared into the sky and instantly became neck and neck with the 7 stars of the azure dragon. The towering azure dragon once again showed the might of a sovereign descending to the world, charging with determination. The 7 stars of the azure dragon are of the same breath and branch, sharing weal and woe, and following in life and death. I, Long Yuxing, am fortunate to have obtained the Imperial Azure Dragon Sacred Sword. Now I'll accompany you, the 7 stars dragon roaming, ruling the 4 extremes, side by side, fighting to the death. The Azure Dragon whistled away. The 7 stars of the Azure Dragon laughed. You're not our big brother. Thank you. You didn't disgrace the Azure Dragon Sacred Sword, but this time we want to reunite with our big brother. The 7 stars of the Azure Dragon actually sped up under such extreme speed. It was a charge that burned the soul. It surpassed the Azure Dragon that had similarly reached extreme speed. This was godly speed. The convergence of the 7 stars that had reached godly speed was the first to collide with the God-slaying spear. We understand what you want to do. You want to complete our final journey. We appreciate it. We're grateful and gratified, but we don't need it. Even if we die, we'll be the ones looking for our big brother. It has nothing to do with you. Your responsibility is to pass on our big brother's legacy. We can die, but you can't. We have nothing left to live for. If we're willing to die, we'll die. But you want to live on with the Azure Dragon Sacred Sword. Boom! The 7 stars of the Azure Dragon collided with the god-slaying spear with unparalleled might. At the same time, they used all kinds of extreme attacks on the god-slaying spear for the final time. No matter how the god-slaying spear's unparalleled sharpness pierced through the bodies of the 7 of them, turning them into candied haws, they still laughed. Let's go and find our big brother. Roar. With a boom, the 7 of them self-detonated at the same time. All of their vitality, souls, and everything else were put into this self-detonation. Chapter 1406. Under the unprecedentedly violent explosion, a huge no-man's land was opened up in the middle of the battlefield. It also cut off the battlefield. A huge mushroom cloud rose into the sky. Buzz! The god-slaying spear trembled, somersaulted, and flew back. The shaft of the spear buzzed like a windmill in the air. Long Yusheng, who was nearby, was also sent flying by the impact of the explosion. Fortunately, when the 7 stars of Azure Dragon self-destructed, they had already prepared a backup plan. The force placed here was all pushing force, and there was no explosive impact force. Therefore, Long Yusheng was sent flying 7,000 meters away by the huge force, but he was not injured. With this unprecedented explosion, the huge battle line from east to west was cut off. The 7 stars of Azure Dragon had completely disappeared. Wanli Xiu screamed and killed the demons in front of her. She rushed to Long Yusheng like a madwoman and asked incoherently, "How are you? Are you hurt?" "I'm fine. I'm fine." Long Yusheng stood up and took a deep breath. The 7 stars of Azure Dragon are gone. They asked for mercy and got it. Don't be too sad. Zhuochanglu flew over and checked Long Yusheng. He heaved a sigh of relief and said, "This is a battlefield. There's sacrifices everywhere. If you have any regrets, leave them for after the battle. What we need to do now is to kill the enemy." Before he finished speaking, he had already rushed forward with his saber. The grand saber light flashed again, crisscrossing and sweeping away the enemy. In the distance, the huge figure of the demon ancestor suddenly appeared. He waved his hand, and the god-slaying spear, which was trembling and shrieking in the air, flew back to his palm. It was still buzzing and trembling, as if it was complaining about its grievances. The god-slaying spear had suffered from the explosion of the 7 stars. Although it was an ultimate Khanate spirit treasure, it was still severely injured. It was an unprecedented injury. Who were the 7 stars of Azure Dragon? 7 peak primordial chaos experts, including a peak early-stage zenith heavenly realm expert, burned all of their vitality, true essence, and souls in a converging manner. They even collectively pierced through the body of the god-slaying spear and detonated themselves. It could be said to be the most extreme way of self-destruction. Moreover, it was at the closest distance, and there was no room for escape. Such a cruel experience. Even the god-slaying spear's life of slaughter. This was the first time it had suffered such a fate. Black chi emanated from the demon ancestor's hand. Boundless and pure demonic chi was injected into the god-slaying spear to help it recover. With a sneer, he took a step forward and arrived in front of Zhuochanglu. Then he thrust out his spear. Die. Zhuochanglu did not say a word as he chopped down with his saber. This was the second time the two had fought. On that day, the demon race continent had attacked the 3 continents. The 3 continents had prepared well and were ready to attack. They had planned to inflict heavy losses on the demon race army. But because of the demon ancestor's brazen attack, he had severely injured the number 1 expert of the Astral Souls continent, Zhuochanglu. Even the Sky Patrol saber had been destroyed by the spear. Now that they had fought for the second time, even if Zhuochanglu's cultivation had improved greatly and was like a different person from before, would he be able to deal with the demon ancestor, who was one of the strongest in the immemorial age? Fearing that her husband would not be able to withstand the enemy, Wu Yuting followed with her sword. Long Yusheng and Wan Lixio stood on the left and right respectively. The dragon sword and Moon's soul stood upright. The four of them joined forces to fight the demon ancestor. Although the god-slaying spear had been healed by the demonic qi, it was impossible for it to be fully recovered. As a result, the demon ancestor Rahu's combat power had been reduced somewhat. The battle between the five of them caused the entire space to shatter. The demon ancestor Rahu was extremely shocked. These four ants could actually block the great demon ancestor. The god-slaying spear increased its strength and could not help but bring out its true abilities. Boom, 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 that the space cracked and shattered. Zhuo Changlu and Wu Yuting were like the mainstays. They did not seek to achieve anything, but they did not seek to make any mistakes. They were 70% defensive and 30% offensive. With the help of Long Yusheng and Wan Lixio, they actually managed to hold off the demon ancestor Rao. Xianyan led Gao, Qiao'er, Zhan Piao, Xiao, and Zhu Yin to tear the space apart. Not long after, they arrived at the shore of the inland sea. As far as the eye could see, the Ashura tribe had broken through the defensive line of the inland sea. By now, the entire inland sea had transformed into a river of blood, with towering waves of blood surging out of the surface of the sea and into the land below. Everywhere it passed, mountains collapsed and cities fell. It was a scene of desolation and endless collapse. Although there was a heroic soul pass on the other side, it could not withstand the continuous impact of the tsunami, not to mention the crazy impact of the infinite blood god sun. After a short period of resistance, the heroic soul pass gradually showed signs of corrosion. Then, the entire pass collapsed. The monstrous blood waves surged toward them. Countless people struggled and screamed in the blood sea. However, after a few ups and downs, they disappeared without a trace. They had all turned into eerie white bones that floated in the blood river. After another tumble, even the white bones disappeared. As it devoured more and more living beings, the blood sea grew bigger and bigger. The blood waves surged. They were already tens of thousands of feet deep. They were ferocious and insufferably arrogant. Zhuo Xiaoyan took the lead and rushed to the front. When she saw the incoming blood sea, she flew for 3,000 miles. Her white clothes and white skirt flew across the sky. Everywhere he passed, an extremely cold aura followed him and engulfed the entire space. The raging blood sea, which was originally baring its fangs and brandishing its claws, not only did the waves drop by tens of thousands of feet, but it also froze. Little Dove had already fully matured and transformed into a sentient life form. It was a high-grade ice soul. As it spat out a mouthful of air, 1,000 miles of ice and rivers of blood appeared in another direction. Li Chenglong's deployment of troops was the result of careful consideration. With Zhuo Xiaoyan's tyrannical ice attribute, she could be said to be a natural enemy of the Azura Blood Sea. With the arrival of Zhuo Xiaoyan, the front of the raging blood sea instantly turned into ice sculptures and could no longer do anything. The only question was how long Zhuo Xiaoyan could last. The blood sea that had turned into ice sculptures did not really disappear. It still existed. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Countless blood god suns jumped out of the frozen blood sea. Behind them, many Azura warriors that were frozen in the blood sea appeared in unison. Boom, boom, boom. It was also at this moment that Zhuo Xiaoyan's ice flames were fully activated for the first time. The sea of blood that had already been frozen completely turned into a field of ice and fire. It was still frozen, still an ice sculpture, but it was burning with ice flames. It was an irreversible, special burning, an unextinguishable, mysterious burning. Even if the blood sea rushed up from behind, it could only provide fuel for the ice flames. In the blink of an eye, millions of blood god sons and Azura warriors were all infected by the ice flames, and their death was already a foregone conclusion. Along with a dense shout, A tall figure with a head full of messy hair descended upon the mortal realm like a demon from hell. It was the Nether River Patriarch. Looking at the freezing ice flames that spread across the land and soared into the sky, his pupils suddenly shrank. He roared furiously. Why is the primordial phoenix ice flame here? The Phoenix clan was clearly in alliance this time. How could something like this happen? Could it be that the Phoenix clan has other plans and wants to scheme against me? He hurriedly flew forward and instantly recognized Zhuo Xiaoyan, the girl who could sit down easily in the Purple Cloud Palace. But why did this girl have the Phoenix Ice Flame? That was the Phoenix clan's greatest trump card. At the same time, another shadow appeared in the sky. A huge, grotesquely shaped, ugly monkey suddenly appeared. It opened its mouth and an endless stream of gurgling, yellow, turbid gas came out of its mouth. Was that poison? Poison surged out of the scarlet ape's mouth like a tide, pouring over the wildly burning ice flames that suddenly, a boundless amount of poisonous fog slowly rose. The poisonous fog seemed to be under the command of the Azura army, and it swept towards the Azura army. The endless stench that filled the air was like a public toilet that had been left unattended after being exposed to the sun for 2 days after a summer storm, with hundreds of rotting rats and turtles soaking in it. Even the Azura tribe could not help vomiting when they smelled that stench. A biological weapon, an absolute biological weapon. And yet, the true lethality of this biological weapon was about to be revealed that as far as the eye could see, everyone who came into contact with this stench began to rot away in the blink of an eye. It really was just the blink of an eye. Every Azura tribe on the land had decayed. The sky-filling ice flames that touched the bodies of the Azura blood god scions had sealed their doom, but it could still buy them some time. On the other hand, the appearance of this new poisonous fog greatly hastened the death of the Blood Sea army. Even so, the Nether River Patriarch did not care about the massive casualties of the Blood Sea army. His true focus was the Nether River Patriarch's eyeballs almost fell out of their sockets as he roared in rage. Scarlet Ape? Screw your mother. Why are you here? What the hell? What the hell? The moment the words left his mouth, his heart began to beat like a drum. The Nether River Patriarch's expression changed. What the hell? Why was the Scarlet Ape here? And in a direct confrontation? That fellow's bad luck. Sigh, there was no need to consider that. Just look at what that fellow had done. The Azura tribe had lost at least hundreds of thousands, and that was just the beginning. By the time this battle was over, there would be more than 1 million casualties, wouldn't there? Could it be that this wasn't bad luck? The Scarlet Ape continued to spray poison, completely ignoring the Nether River Patriarch. Although he knew the Nether River Patriarch, he was not close. Now that they were on opposite sides and the war was dangerous, he did not have the time to pay attention to the Nether River Patriarch. It was more important to continue killing the enemy. Zhuo Xiaoyan, Zhen Piapiao, Gao Xiao and Xiao all covered their noses and looked miserable, their faces contorted as they killed the enemy. That fellow, so disgusting. I'm dying from a stench. It's good that you're killing the enemy, but it stinks too much. The antidote you gave us before could only detoxify the poison, but it could not block the stench. The Nether River Patriarch yelled. That's the Scarlet Ape. That's the Scarlet Ape. Retreat for now. Why is that unlucky thing here? Fuck. Retreat. Don't charge forward, Blood River. Hold your ground first. How many recommendation votes? Chapter 1407. The Nether River Patriarch made a prompt decision and immediately ordered the army to retreat. The Blood River reversed. The Azura higher-ups immediately took action and cut off the front. They drew a 1,000-foot-wide isolation section, because they were very clearly aware that it was impossible to save those within the icy flames. On the other hand, if Zhuo Xiaoyan were to use the 3,000 miles of ice again and freeze a portion of the Azura army here, then the icy flames would immediately spread over here. That would be a greater loss. Ever since the Azura race was born, they were most afraid of the Phoenix race. They were even more afraid of them than the Western sect. Although the Western sect had long had the wishful thinking of expiating the Azura race, and had even expiated a considerable number of them, they had not really annihilated the Azura race. However, the Phoenix race's Nirvana heavenly flame and the primordial Phoenix's ice flames were the natural nemesis of the Azura race. The Phoenix race was proud and pure by nature and did not tolerate the filth of the world. It was precisely for this reason that the Azura race had been chased to the underground blood river by the Phoenix race during the ancient Dragon Han First Tribulation. It was rare for them to see the light of day. In this joint battle, the Azura race and the Phoenix race were on the same side as the Azura race for the first time. They could at least roam freely and look down on everyone. However, they had not fought for long and encountered the ice flames. Moreover, it was an exceptionally pure and thick ice flame. How could the Nether River Patriarch and the higher-ups of the Azura race not be stunned and puzzled? Wasn't this fucking cheating them? Not to mention encountering Zhu Yin, just the psychological impact alone was enough to make their hearts beat faster. It was more than 100 pounds. It was simply like thunder, and their hearts and livers were trembling. The higher-ups all looked at the Nether River Patriarch and waited for him to make a decision. The Nether River Patriarch gritted his teeth and said, "The arrow is already on the bow. We have to release it. All those above the primordial chaos realm will fight. Kill those little fellows first. Go. Destroy the enemy at all costs. Especially Zhu Yin. We must kill it. And this little girl in white. She'll be the key to this battle. Kill her with all your might." The battle only paused for a short while before it started again. All those with Xiaoyan had fewer people. They were all top masters. The most important thing was that Zhuo Xiaoyan knew what to do. They only needed to hold on for at least half an hour to at most an hour, and Zhuo Xiaoduo would be able to lead the army to reinforce them. With his top-grade equipment and the help of Gao Qiao and the others, it shouldn't be a big problem. With this in mind, Zhuo Xiaoyan went all out without hesitation. The many treasures that Duo Bao and the others had given him as thanks were unleashed one after another like raindrops. With this application, Zhuo Xiaoyan was surprised to find that the power of these magical treasures was beyond her expectations. All kinds of earth, fire, water, wind, raging flames, and ice appeared, descending from the sky. A hole suddenly collapsed, and the Azura people who fell were besieged by the yellow scarf strongmen. Dozens of mountains suddenly came crashing down from the other side. She casually pulled out a fan and waved it wildly. Several Azura masters who had just rushed in front of her had their souls blown away by the wind from the fan. That as expected, Nether River Patriarch's attention was focused on Zhuo Xiaoyan. Taking advantage of the fact that there were many of them, he attacked and hit Zhuo Xiaoyan's shoulder. Just when he was relieved that he had succeeded, he didn't expect the immortal slaying sword Qi to rush out from the spot where he was hit and pierce a hole in his stomach. Tong Tian, immortal slaying sword. Nether River was stunned by this sudden change. He held his stomach and retreated thousands of feet, his eyeballs almost falling out. What kind of existence is this little girl? How? Is she not only related to the Phoenix clan, but also the Tong Tian sect leader? If he didn't know how powerful she was and retreat a little slower, he would have been beheaded by Zhuo Xiaoyan. Nether River knew that he had underestimated the little girl in front of him. He couldn't help but observe her attentively. He found that while Zhuo Xiaoyan was attacking, she was also absorbing the cold air of the natural ice crystals to replenish herself. Together with Xiao Duo, they were wantonly freezing all the creatures in the Blood Sea. Zhuo Xiaoyan was now at the pinnacle of sage to be. Without a large number of natural ice crystals, other things could not replenish her instantaneously and maintain her peak combat power. With such cultivation strength, she would not be at a disadvantage even if she were to fight Nether River head-on. She would go all out, smashing her mystic treasures, shouting loudly, and fighting with infinite violence. What shocked Nether River even more was her own defense. To be frank, even if the 4 disciples of the GS sect attacked at the same time, Zhuo Xiaoyan could stand still for a few minutes. She was so strong and had so many protective mystic treasures that even the 6 sages would be jealous of her. How could Nether River Patriarch not be shocked when she had such equipment and supplies? Ice seal, ice flame, burn, explode. Xiaonian's expression was cold. She shouted softly, but her hands did not slow down at all. Naturally, a large number of creatures fell in front of her. The Xiao duo fought side by side with Zhu Yin wielding the Huawang sword. Yin Shirsi was darting back and forth. Not only was he killing, but he was also absorbing the aura of death. More and more demonic flames were rising. At first glance, it was not much different from the real god-slaying spear. The more Nether River Patriarch watched, the more terrified he felt. There was also anger and heartache. His hundreds of millions of troops were blocked here, just like that. But he felt worse and worse. Why did he encounter Zhu Yin? Why did he encounter the ice flame? And, where did the demon ancestors' god-slaying spear come from? Even if it was not the real god-slaying spear, it had to be a clone. The Patriarch could not be wrong. It was too unusual for so many strange things to happen together. Could this be a trap set by the dragons, phoenixes, Chilants, and demons for the Azura tribe? They did not want to destroy the continent of astral souls. Instead, they wanted to destroy the Azura tribe, right? He knew that nothing good would happen when he saw Zhu Yin, but he did not expect to be so unlucky. It was a disaster. Could it be that Zhu Yan's reappearance after so many years had increased the disaster level? Could it be that it could shake the fate and lifeline of an entire tribe in just a moment? The situation in Shangjing was different. At least, it was very different from Li Chenglong's prediction. The primordial god clan's flying ability was very powerful. They were much faster than the others. In the sky above Shangjing, one person, one sword, and one sword stood 3,000 meters above the protective shield of Shangjing. Although he was alone, the sword light that reached the heavens and the earth shone brightly in all directions. The sword light was piercingly cold, and the sword light shot in all directions. That person's green robe fluttered, and he stood with his hands behind his back. His long sword was still in its scabbard on his back. The sword was not out of its scabbard, but the sword light shone through the heavens and the earth. This person himself was a sharp sword that could shake the heavens. The sword light that flowed around his body shone in all directions. It was extremely sharp and brilliant. Looking from afar, he was like a sun that emitted light and heat, illuminating the universe and illuminating the heavens. The only difference was that the sun used light, and he used sword energy. The 6 masters of the dragon tribe, the phoenix tribe, and the Chilan tribe had arrived in the sky above Shangjing. When they saw this person, they could not help but feel shocked. The sword light flowed around his body. He used his physical body to resist the strong wind. His clothes and hair fluttered in the wind. He looked like an immortal who could ride the wind and fly away at any time. It was as if nothing in the world was in his eyes and nothing in the world was in his heart. However, all the masters of the 3 clans could feel it very clearly. This person's state of mind was completely different from his appearance. He was a person who was sure to die. Yes, he was determined to die in this battle. Today he would fight to the death here. The moment they saw this person, the masters of the 3 clans came to a consensus. If this person did not die, Shangjing could not be attacked. This person would do his best to protect this city. He would use his life to protect this city, and he would use his soul to protect this city from falling. This feeling was ridiculous and nonsensical. How could one person protect a super metropolis with more than 200 million people? How could one person protect it? The 3 clans had launched a large-scale attack, and the total number exceeded hundreds of millions. Even if he could grow 3 heads and 6 arms, or even split himself into 100, he would still not be able to protect the city if he surrounded Shangjing City from all directions, not to mention drowning the city with sheer numbers. Even if he could grow 3 heads and 6 arms, or even split himself into hundreds, he would still not be able to protect a city. However, when their eyes met the person standing there, especially when they met that calm and indifferent gaze. That kind of wordless aura clearly told you everything. I'm still here. All of you don't move. If you move, kill. I will keep my word. If you don't believe me, you can try. Use your lives to try. With a vigorous dragon roar, a giant dragon of 10,000 feet suddenly appeared above the 9 heavens. It circled around and stood in the void with endless power. The giant dragon then turned into an old man in gray clothes and landed lightly. He stood on the other side of the swordsman and looked at him from afar. The old man praised in a deep voice, "What courage! What determination! What momentum! Human, what is your name? Standing here, do you want to have a life and death battle with the 3 clans?" Qin Fanyang looked into the distance and did not look at the old man in front of him. He said indifferently, "Only one person in charge of the 3 clans came. Why should I talk to you?" His words were full of arrogance. It could be said that he was very impolite and did not have a demeanor. However, the old man did not take it to heart. Instead, his eyes lit up and he praised, "Good boy, you want to arm wrestle with us? Not only arm wrestle, but there will also be bloodshed." Qin Fanyang sneered and said, "Why? Are you the only one from the 3 clans? The leaders of the other 2 clans do not dare to show up? Haha, among the ancient god clans, the dragon clan is really good. They are indeed the leader of the 3 legendary clans. As for the other 2, ancestral Gragon laughed and felt very comforted. He especially felt that the boy in front of him had a good eye. He knew that the dragon clan was good. What was more rare was that he knew that the dragon clan was the leader of the 3 clans since ancient times. It was simply too delightful. Nonsense. Suddenly, a Chilan roar and a phoenix cry shook the sky. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.